DJ Mike C on the track.
Cause that be natural. Lady D. Looking tacky. I keep my game tactful.
Yo.
Yeah, I'm so nappy. Cause that be natural.
The infamous.
I ain't looking tacky cause I keep my game tactful.
I'm so pretty, I'm so fabu, I'm so nappy, it's like it's a taboo. I'm so filthy, got the tattoo, fucking these bitches like I own ragu. On my business with my platoon, getting these minutes like I'm a typhoon. Y'all is cheering on that cartoon.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Airfros and Babyhairs for another chat session. Today we are still playing catch up on a few topics, so go ahead and get your snacks and a beverage of choice, get a comfortable seat, and let's get into the latest. But first, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do so now. Hit the bell to know when we are chopping it up, and leave us some feedback down in the comments. Oh yeah, tell your friends about us to help us grow. Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. So, how is everyone doing? Hopefully, all is well. I hope everyone is having a peaceful and productive week. I hope it has been stress-free. Mine has been pretty intense. However, I try to find peace in everything. It's very intentional. And I'm still a work in progress, but I strive to find peace in it all. Anyways, let's get into the foolishness and shenanigans. Now, the first topic is on a flu that's going around. So it's coming from cdc.gov, and it says highly pathogenic avian influenza A, which is H5N1, a virus infection reported in a person in the U.S. And it says April 1st, 2024, a person in the United States has tested positive for highly pathogenic avian influenza, as reported by Texas and confirmed by CDC. This person has had exposure to dairy cattle in Texas, presumed to be infected with a HPAI, a H5N1 viruses. The patient reported eye redness consistent with conjunctivitis as their only symptom and is recovering. The patient was told to isolate and is being treated with an antiviral drug for flu. This infection does not change the H5N1 bird flu human health risk assessment for the U.S. general public, which CDC considers to be low. However, people with close or prolonged unprotected exposures to infected birds or other animals, including livestock, or to environments contained by infected birds or other animals, are at greater risk of infection. CDC has interim recommendations for prevention, monitoring, and public health investigations of HPAI-A H5N1 viruses. CDC is working with state health departments to continue to monitor workers who may have been in contact with infected or potentially infected birds/animals and test those people who develop symptoms. CDC also has recommendations for clinicians on monitoring, testing, and antiviral treatments for patients with suspected or confirmed avian influenza A virus infections. This is the second person reported to have tested positive for influenza A H5N1 viruses in the United States. A previous human case occurred in 2022 in Colorado. Human infections with avian influenza A viruses, including A H5N1 viruses, are uncommon but have occurred sporadically worldwide. CDC has been monitoring for illness among people exposed to H5 virus infected birds since outbreaks were first detected in U.S. wild birds and poultry in late 2021. Human illnesses with H5N1 bird flu have ranged from mild example, eye infection, upper respiratory symptoms, to severe illness, example, pneumonia, that have resulted in death in other countries. H5 bird flu is widespread among wild birds in the U.S. and globally. These viruses also have caused outbreaks in commercial and backyard poultry, flocks, and sporadic infections in mammals. HPAI in dairy cows was first reported in Texas and Kansas by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, on March the 25th, 2024. Unpasteurized milk from sick cattle collected from 2 dairy farms in Kansas and 1 in Texas, as well as a throat swab from a cow in another dairy in Texas, tested positive for HPA1 or HPAI-H5 viruses of the genetic clade 2.3.4.4b, which is the same clade that is widespread among birds globally. On March 29, 2024, USDA's National Veterinary Services Laboratories confirmed HPAI in a Michigan dairy herd that had recently received cows from Texas. The USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, APHIS, is providing regular updates on detections in dairy herds, as well as information on epidemiological findings and biosecurity guidance for farmers and veterinarians. Preliminary analysis of H5N1 viruses has not found changes that would make these viruses resistant to current FDA-approved flu antiviral medications, so these are believed to be effective against these viruses. Candidate vaccine viruses developed against related clade 2.3.4.4b viruses are available for vaccine manufacturing if necessary, and preliminary analysis indicates that they may provide reasonable protection against H5N1 influenza viruses. Seasonal flu vaccines do not provide protection against these viruses. Analysis of virus samples is ongoing. CDC is working closely with state and federal agencies, including USDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and local health authorities to further investigate and closely monitor this situation. Prevention measures. According to CDC's interim recommendations, people should avoid unprotected exposures to sick or dead animals, including wild birds, poultry, other domesticated birds, and other wild or domesticated animals, including cattle, as well as with animal carcasses, raw milk, feces, litter, or materials contaminated by birds or other animals with confirmed or suspected HPAI H5N1 virus infection. People should not prepare or eat uncooked or undercooked food or related uncooked food products, such as unpasteurized raw milk or products made from raw milk, such as cheeses from animals with confirmed or suspected HPAI H5N1 virus infection, avian influenza, or bird flu. Specific recommendations for farmers, poultry, backyard flock, and livestock owners and worker protection are also available. People exposed to birds or other animals with confirmed or suspected HPAI H5N1 virus infection should be monitored for any signs and symptoms of illness for 10 days after the last known exposure, including people wearing recommended personal protective equipment. Additional information on protective actions around birds, including what to do if you find a dead bird, is available on CDC's website. According to FDA and USDA, there are not concerns with the safety of the commercial milk supply at this time because products are pasteurized before entering the market. Dairies are required to send only milk from healthy animals into processing for human consumption. Milk from impacted animals is being diverted or destroyed so that it does not enter the human food supply. In addition, pasteurization has continually proven to inactivate bacteria and viruses like influenza in milk. Pasteurization is required for any milk entering interstate commerce for human consumption. FDA's long-standing position as the unpasteurized raw milk can harbor dangerous microorganisms that can pose serious health risks to consumers, and FDA is reminding consumers of the risk associated with raw milk consumption in light of the HPAI detections. CDC continues to work with USDA, FDA, and state health departments to monitor people exposed to animals infected with HPAI-A H5N1 viruses. Because influenza viruses constantly change and continued surveillance and preparedness efforts are critical, and CDC is taking measures in case the public health risk assessment changes. This is a developing situation, and CDC will share additional updates as new relevant information becomes available. So y'all heard it, people. It's another bird flu going around. You might want to slow down on eating the chicken, eating the cheeses, and eating the beef as of right now, and don't mess around with bird poop and all of that. So I just wanted to inform everybody about this bird flu going around. Guard yourself, guard your grill. So y'all, the next topic is coming from today.com, and this is on Portia Williams and Simon Guobadia. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So it says, Real Housewives of Atlanta star Portia Williams breaks silence following news of her divorce. Williams and Guobadia tied the knot in November 2022. Portia Williams has broken her silence after filing for divorce from her husband, Simon Guobadia. In an Instagram post on February 25th, Williams shared her first public message since news of the split from her husband. Thank you for your prayers and support. Read the message, which included a praying and broken heart emoji. Thank you for your prayers and support. Okay. Hours before her post, Guobadia shared his own message in an Instagram story, sharing his feelings on the divorce. And it said, "Will stop loving my wife when divorce is final," he wrote. The former couple's comments come after more than a year of marriage. Williams, who is set to return to Real Housewives of Atlanta, filed for divorce from Guobadia on February the 22nd in Georgia's Fulton County Superior Court, according to a court docket. The docket indicates that the case type is divorce contested. Today.com has reached out to Williams for comment. Williams and her Nigerian husband tied the knot in November 2022 in a traditional ceremony at the Four Seasons Hotel, Atlanta. People reported at the time. Among the couple's 250 guests were Williams' fellow RHOA stars Kandi Burruss, Drew Sidora, Cynthia Bailey, and Kim Zolciak Biermann. The couple, who announced their engagement in May 2021, reportedly followed up that ceremony with an American wedding ceremony in an Atlanta church with 350 guests. Williams' divorce filings comes less than 2 weeks after she announced she was returning to the RHOA cast for season 16. The Bravo star, who was previously listed as Portia Williams in the show's credits before she exited the series in September 2021, made a point to say she would be using her married name on the show next season.
Coming back to Real Housewives of Atlanta? That's false. But Portia Guobadia is in the building. See y'all. Mwah. Williams coming back to Real Housewives of Atlanta? That's false. But Portia Guobadia is in the building. See y'all. Mwah.
Portia Williams coming back to Real Housewives of Atlanta. That's false. But Portia Guobadia is in the building. Ha ha. See y'all. The Bravo star said in the video she posted February 13th on Instagram. She captured her video, season 16, let's go. Hashtag RHOA, are y'all ready? Adding several emojis, including a crown of jewels. In the court docket for the divorce, she is listed as Portia Diane Williams. The divorce filing comes shortly after the couple celebrated Valentine's Day. On February the 16th, Guardia posted a photo of Williams in a bikini next to a bouquet of red roses, red balloons, and a red teddy bear. "All mine, my love," he captioned it, adding rose and heart emoji. Williams posted images from the same photo shoot on her own Instagram account, captioning them "Happy wife, happy life." Williams was previously married to former football star Cordell Stewart. She shares a daughter, Pilar Jenna, with her ex Dennis McKinley. Guardia, who was previously married to Fallon Pena, another former RHOA cast member, is a dad to 5 children from previous relationships. Now, they did not have to throw that in there. So that is an update on Portia Williams and her now about to be ex-husband, and also that she is returning to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I don't know why she left in the first place, but yeah, that is the update on that. I don't really have much to say about it because I didn't follow really their love story, and I haven't been watching, Real Housewives of Atlanta lately. But for those of you who are, there's your update on that. But y'all can let me know what y'all think about it or fill me in the comment section below. So since we're talking about divorces, let's get into Jeannie Mai's and Jeezy's divorce. And this is coming from People, and it reads, Jeezy breaks silence after filing for divorce from Jeannie Mai, comes with a heavy heart. The rapper filed for divorce from the host of The Real in September. Jeezy is speaking out about ending his marriage to Jeannie Mai Jenkins for the first time since filing for divorce in September. On Thursday, the rapper, 46, released a statement about the decision he and the host of The Real, 44, made to end their marriage after 2.5 years. The decision to end this chapter in my life was not made impulsively and comes with a heavy heart, the Grammy-nominated artist said. Despite this, my love and respect for Jeannie remains, and the time we spent together holds a cherished place in my heart. Jeezy, whose real name is J. Wayne Jenkins, also referred to his daughter Monaco, whom he and the TV personality welcomed in January of 2022. He says, "Our beautiful daughter is the best gift from our relationship, and I am committed to assuring she feels the love and stability she deserves. During this period, I kindly request that you respect our family's privacy as we focus on healing," the hip-hop star statement concludes. Jeezy filed for divorce from Mai Jenkins on September the 14th in Atlanta, Georgia. According to documents obtained by People, the filing says the former couple is currently living in a bona fide state of separation and that their marriage is irretrievably broken with no hope for reconciliation. The pair, who began quietly dating in 2018 before tying the knot in March 2021, had a prenuptial agreement in place per the documents. According to the documents, the put-on rapper wants to share joint legal custody of their daughter. The recorded artist is also the father of 2 other children. He and Tanisha Dyke welcomed their son Jadarius in 1996, and daughter Amra Noor was born in 2014 to him and his then partner Malet Mahi Grimadin. Mai Jenkins recently broke her silence about the divorce as well. Last week, the former makeup artist posted to Instagram to share a statement. The star posted a photo of handwriting in a notebook. The words read, "Sometimes you need to take a break and disconnect to heal." On Tuesday, Jeezy spoke out about how he was unknowingly struggling with depression and anxiety for years during the interview on the Tamron Hall show. "I learned that vulnerability is power, the soul survivor," rapper told the host while referring to his new memoir, Adversity for Sale. I thought something was wrong with me, thinking I come from poverty. This is just how it is. I didn't understand trauma and all these different things. So when I started to get the words for it, I started to understand and grab tools. I started to become better, he continued. I started my journey, and that's why I'm expressing it and putting it in the book, because I didn't know I was depressed for like 8 years of my life straight. So that is his response to the breakup. So obviously he was dealing with some trauma, and had some anxiety that he needed to work through, and also that he was depressed. So that may be why it was a little bit of strain in the marriage. But hopefully they all will, heal and move on and be whole. So wishing them love and light. And hopefully, they heal for the baby as well. So yeah, guys, let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. And it's interesting to hear from Jeezy, because, you never really heard from him before. Only his music. So this is very interesting. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this. So y'all, the next topic is coming from the Associated Press, U.S. News, and I'm gonna just jump right into it. It says, mom arrested after Instagram post about 5-year-old daughter helping wax adult clients. A Tennessee woman who posted photos on Instagram that appeared to show her 5-year-old daughter helping her apply wax to adult clients for hair removal has been charged with child neglect. A Tennessee woman who posted photos on Instagram that appeared to show her 5-year-old daughter helping her wax adult clients for hair removal has been charged with child neglect, according to police reports. The Memphis Police Department received multiple complaints on February the 15th about a post with images of a young girl appearing to apply hot wax to the pubic area of adults, the Commercial Appeal reported, citing an arrest affidavit. The woman said in the post, which has since been deleted, that her daughter had participated in the waxing of 24 clients over a span of time that exceeded 8 hours, according to the arrest affidavit. She was arrested Monday on a warrant charging her with child neglect. So yeah, about that. Is she working from home doing these waxes? And does this woman even have a license herself? Or do you not need a license to wax adults? But yeah, that's disgusting. That is disgusting. Even if the child had on a mask, even if the child was wearing gloves, there is no reason that a child needs to be down in strange women's pocketbooks, yanking hair off of them. And no 5-year-old should be dealing with no hot wax. So I don't know how she gonna resolve this situation, but that's crazy. Like, girl, what were you thinking? And then to post it on Instagram. Like, people really be thinking they be doing a big one, but it be really a epic fail. Like, what was the point of that? To say that your daughter following in your footsteps, or to say that you making your child work at 5? Like, girl, nothing about that is cute. Nothing about that was worth posting. That child should have been somewhere watching cartoons, reading a book, playing outside instead of waxing coochies. So I don't blame people for scooping that little girl up out of that situation. Because secondly, that's not a life for a 5-year-old. So let's just start there. So anyway, let me know y'all thoughts on that. Moving on. So y'all, the next topic is coming from LiveJournal, and it says songwriter Tiffany Red calls out popular singers for stealing publishing on songs they didn't write. Songwriter Tiffany Red took to the internet to call out some major artists taking publishing rights away from songwriters. She starts off by saying that almost every record she has done, she has written when the artist was not in the room. She then goes into detail about some songs she's worked on for some big name acts, breaks down when the song was written, and talks about artists taking publishing credits away from the songwriters. Artists and songs mentioned are Zendaya Replay. Zendaya got 10% of the publishing. She did not write on the song. It was written at a Rihanna songwriting camp and was on hold for Rihanna. It was then on hold for ONTD's own Rita Ora. Then it went to Zendaya. Tamar Braxton for King. Tiffany Red wrote that song for herself in her own living room. 7th Streeter, just being honest. She then says she calls out Beyonce specifically because she is the one with the money, power, and influence to change things. She says she spoke to somebody who managed someone that wrote and produced on Renaissance. A particular song was written 6 years before it got to Beyonce, and Beyonce got 25% of the publishing. She says she spoke to another person involved with Renaissance that didn't get proper credit. She then says the reason people who work for Beyonce don't talk is because they're all on NDAs. She spoke to a writer on one of Beyonce's previous records who told her that they didn't want any trouble and just let Beyonce take the publishing. She calls out the power dynamic at play and discusses how musicians do need to be held accountable for business practices they engage in. She calls out the exploitation of writers by artists getting rich off other people's work. She goes on to discuss racism in the industry, capitalism, wage theft, and abuse of power. And on an Instagram post, she wrote, at Beyonce. Well, first of all, she wrote, my hope is that on Act 2 at Beyonce will hashtag pay songwriters a songwriter fee and master points and not take publishing or songwriting credit on any songs she did not write. And then she wrote, at Beyonce, you have the opportunity to change the game for songwriters the way you change the game in everything else you do. I pray you'll answer this call. So many writers dream of the opportunity to work with you and play a part in your incredible music journey. They deserve to make a livable wage and feed their families from the music they create for you too. Hashtag pay songwriters. Wow. Now I remember back in the day, they would say that songwriters would actually get paid more than the artists. So now the artist is taking those publishing rights away. And so they're not only getting paid for the writing of the song, they're getting paid for the performance of the song as well. So it sounds like it's a little greedy. Meanwhile, the songwriter's not getting anything. That is shade. So I kind of don't blame her for speaking out. You know, people shouldn't have to work for free, especially if they did create a piece. Like, it's kind of like intellectual property. If you created it, it's yours, and it should be like against the law to be working for free. And if you're not getting paid for your intellectual property, then that's called stealing. So, yeah. Anyway, let me know what y'all think on it. But yeah, that's shady and shiesty business practices. Once again. So this next topic is coming from thedailymail.com. And it reads, victim of infamous New York City nightclub pow-powing renews claims Diddy pow-powed her despite rapper never being charged. The victim of an infamous 1999 New York City nightclub pow-powing says she still believes that Sean Diddy Combs pow-powed her despite the rapper never having been charged. Natania Rubin, who was hit in the nose and suffered seizures because of bullet fragments still lodged in her face that fateful night, is bringing up the decades-old allegations after the FBI raided Combs' homes over alleged sex trafficking. Combs, as well as then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, was arrested on December 27, 1999, following a powwowing outside the Times Square Club in Manhattan, but neither faced charges. Rapper Jamal Shine Barrow, who admitted to firing the GUN that night, according to the New York Post, was eventually the person charged and went to prison for the powwowing. Rubin, who has consistently accused Combs even after Barrow was found guilty, says she had a clear point of view of the GUN blast and she's willing to go to extreme lengths to prove it. I'm willing to have a doctor remove a part of the 9mm bullet in my face so that they can use it as evidence if need be for this trial, Rubin told Brian Eaton, guest hosting Elizabeth Vargas Reports for News Nation on Friday. Rubin later settled with Combs for $1.8 million, some of which the mogul paid from his own pocket. I literally watched them pull out the GUNs. I had a clear point of view. I mean, for God's sake, I got powwowed in my nose. I was facing them directly. I watched everything occur and I have described it vehemently to all parties involved. Rapper Jamal Shine Barrow was the only person who had charges connected to the powwowing stick, with Diddy's lawyers noting that he was a famous person in public out with an even more famous woman in Lopez, according to HuffPost. At the time, Diddy's attorney, Harvey Slovis, said, "I don't know if you know this, Judge, but this person, Jennifer Lopez, is a very famous actress. To think that Mr. Combs is walking around with her with a loaded GUN and then going to pull it out. It's so ridiculous that it stretches the imagination." Barrow was charged with 3 counts of attempted murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Rubin, who has been speaking out against the rapper ever since the powwowing despite the settlement, believes Diddy should have received similar treatment despite police saying that he was not culpable. "It is my assertion wholeheartedly that Mr. Combs was inappropriately charged originally," Rubin said. So now we are seeing pictures, and it said Combs, as well as then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, was arrested on December 27, 1999, following a shooting outside the Times Square Club in Manhattan. Rubin, who was hit in the nose and suffered seizures because of 7 bullet fragments still lodged in her face that fateful night, has spoken out days after the FBI raided Combs' homes over alleged sex trafficking. And then we have rapper Jamal Shine Barrow was the only person who had charges connected to the powwowing stick and eventually served time in prison. So, wow, it seems like everybody who was a victim somehow of Diddy's or Sean Combs, because it's like, why are we calling him Diddy at this point? Why are we still calling him that? He ain't my daddy. So anyway, all of his victims are coming forward and they trying to make sure if their input can help get him put away, they trying to make sure of it. So yeah, this is crazy. So hopefully those doctors don't pull those fragments out her nose to find out. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. So this next topic, y'all, is coming from AL.com, and it says 6 detained in kidnapping. Brutal unaliving of young Birmingham mother Mahogany Jackson. 3 women and 3 men have been detained in the ongoing investigation into the kidnapping and unaliving of a young Birmingham mother. Mahogany Jackson, 20, texted family members early Sunday saying she was being held hostage and to send police. She also sent them her location. Her body was found in Monday's pre-dawn hours under a mattress in an illegal dumping site in the 1700 block of Laurel Avenue in southwest Birmingham. She had been piled at least one time. None of the suspects have been formally charged with any crime. Birmingham police can hold suspects for at least 48 hours while they continue the investigation and work to obtain formal warrants. The 6 suspects were taken into custody throughout Monday, beginning in the morning when police detectives and the crime reduction team descended on Serenity Apartments, the place Jackson told her family she was being held against her will. A 26-year-old woman was taken into custody there about 10 a.m. She was reportedly found hiding inside an apartment broken into near her own apartment at the same complex. She and Jackson were acquaintances who family said had been in a dispute prior to the unaliving. A second woman, aged 23, was also taken into custody Monday morning. 4 more suspects, a 23-year-old woman and 3 men, 2 of them 25 and 1 18, were booked into the Birmingham City Jail early Tuesday. She said she was being held hostage and to send police. She shared her location with them on her cell phone. Jackson's mother, Gail Maddox, previously told AL.com she was on her way to pick up her son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter from the airport in Atlanta when her other daughter called her and said she'd received a disturbing message from Jackson. Maddox looked at her phone. It was 7:46 a.m. and she too had missed calls through Facebook Messenger, but Maddox was on the phone, so she didn't receive the notification. She sent me a message that said she was being held hostage and sent her location. Maddox said she told her mom not to call her but to call police. Family members rushed to the location, as did Birmingham police. Jackson was nowhere to be found at Serenity Apartments in Birmingham's Powderly community when police and family members showed up there. The resident of the apartment, the 26-year-old suspect who was first to be taken into custody, finally allowed them inside, but they did not see Jackson. That woman told police Jackson had been there but left at 2 a.m. I know that's not true because she sent that message and her location at 7:46 a.m., Maddox previously said. Birmingham homicide detectives worked throughout Sunday and overnight until about 2:15 a.m. Monday when Jackson's body was found. But Sunday night, Maddox knew something terrible had happened. I felt it in my stomach, she said. My daughter would never say call the police, but she was afraid, and that's why she asked us to. On Monday, detectives carried out search warrants, including at the second-floor apartment unit where Jackson had been held. They also investigated several nearby locations. Jackson leaves behind a toddler daughter. A candlelight vigil is set for Thursday at Serenity Apartments. The investigation continues. Anyone with information is asked to call Birmingham homicide investigators at 205-254-1764 or Crime Stoppers at 205-254-7777. Now, usually I don't really like to, bring awareness to these type of situations, especially after the Shanquilla situation, because I feel like it gives young people these ideas that they can go around and murk people and get away with it. So I don't really like to talk about these type of topics. However, I feel like sometimes it's necessary because it's the other perspective. It's like these young people need to understand that everybody is not your friend. Everybody that you think that you're cool with, they could be hating on you. They could be, jealous of you undercover. They might have ulterior motives. And with this idea put in their heads that they can actually get away with doing certain things to people, that they just might act on it. And as you can see, this pattern keeps happening where it's a group of friends or a group of young people that lure this one person off, this one individual off, and do something to them. So you think that they're luring this person off under the guise of, let's go hang out, let's go watch a movie, let's go chill. You know what I'm saying? So they're unsuspecting. So that means if she left with these people, that means that she thought that they were all cool, nothing bad was going to happen or whatever, but it always turns to be another set of events that are unfortunate. So that's why I say, make sure you watch your front and your back. Don't be so eager to just leave with a group of friends that you think are your friends, because they could really, not really be that fond of you. You know what I'm saying? People are jealous these days. They have animosity. They have ulterior motives. And these youngsters right now are dealing with a lot of psychological issues because of the whole COVID situation and being on lockdown, and this whole social media era where everybody is jealous of everybody who is doing better than them, or these social media sites are making them feel less than, and all of that. It's like, it's really messing with people psychologically, especially the younger generation. So you gotta watch who you are, associating with. Everybody is not your friend. Some of these people are just associates. You know what I'm saying? They don't care nothing about you or none of it. So that's why I want to bring awareness to it. And hopefully whoever did something to this girl will be charged, because they need to understand that there are consequences to these type of things. Now, I've seen several stories like this that I haven't said anything about, because I'm not trying to promote this type of behavior. But for the victims, young people out there need to be fully aware and fully informed as to what could possibly happen with these people that you're thinking are your friends or your homies or whatever like that. So that's the only reason why I want to bring it up. This girl was only 20 and she had a child. So this is just very heartbreaking, because she hasn't even had a chance to even live life. And now her child doesn't even have a mother. So this is crazy. But anyway, let me know what y'all think about it in the comments below. But yeah, if you're in the Birmingham area, I may be late on this, so let me make sure, because the vigil might be over. But condolences to her family. Yeah, I'm way late. But yeah, condolences to her family. Peace and blessings and love and light to her baby and her family. But yeah, at some point there has to be some consequences for this type of behavior. So yeah. So this next topic is coming from CNN, and this is it says March 26, 2024, Baltimore Key Bridge collapses after ship collision. And it says what we covered here. The first one is 2 of 6 construction workers who were missing after Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed are from Guatemala, the country's Foreign Affairs Ministry said late Tuesday. The U.S. Coast Guard has ended the rescue operation for the 6 workers who were on the bridge when it collapsed. We do not believe that we are going to find any of these individuals still alive, Commander Shannon Garrett said. Ahead of the collision, the ship's crew notified officials with a mayday call that allowed authorities to stop traffic before impact and likely saved lives, Maryland Governor Wes Moore said. The collapse that has indefinitely halted the flow of ships in and out of Baltimore could hurt the local economy, strain supply chains, and scramble deliveries along the U.S. East Coast. Crew member on Dali said everyone on board was safe hours after bridge collapse, official says. A crew member on the Dali cargo ship sent a message hours after the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed Tuesday, saying everybody on board was safe, according to Apostleship of the Sea Director Andy Middleton. Middleton, who spent time with the captain of the Dali Monday, told CNN's Laura Coates he reached out to a crew member after hearing about the incident Tuesday morning. He said there were 22 members aboard the ship from India who were setting sail earlier Tuesday morning and were headed towards Sri Lanka. I was able to reach out to a crew member very early this morning around 5:30 a.m. Eastern or 6 a.m. Eastern and get a message to them asking if they were okay, he said. The crew member responded within a few minutes advising that the crew was safe and everybody that was on board was safe. Middleton was told by the ship's captain Monday that the vessel was going to take a longer route to avoid risk along the Yemen coast. When I was out with the captain yesterday, we were talking while we were driving, and he advised that they were sailing down and around the tip of South Africa in order to avoid the incidents that are going on off the Yemen coast, and it was a safer way to go, he said. Middleton said the apostleship of the sea is a ministry to seafarers with members that spend time in the port and on the vessels as a friendly face to the seafarers that visit the port of Baltimore, taking care of their needs to make sure that they're reminded of their God-given human dignity when they're here in Baltimore. And so the next portion says, search operation ends in heartbreaking conclusion. Maryland governor says, here's the latest. 6 people who were believed to be a part of road construction crew are presumed unalive after Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed early Tuesday morning. The collapse came after a 984-foot cargo ship hit the bridge's pillar. Maryland Governor Wes Moore told reporters Tuesday evening, it's a really heartbreaking conclusion to a challenging day. Late Tuesday, it was discovered that 2 of the construction workers who went missing after the bridge collapse were from Guatemala. The country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said late Tuesday, here's what you should know to get up to speed. The victims, 8 people were on the bridge when it fell, according to officials. At least 2 people were rescued. 1 was taken to the hospital and was later discharged, fire official and the medical center said. The incident video shows the moment the entire bridge structure falls into the water as the ship hits one of the bridge's pillars. CNN analysis shows that the ship lights flickered and it veered off course before it hit the bridge. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said the crew on the ship were able to issue a mayday before colliding into the bridge, which allowed the authorities to stop incoming traffic from going onto the bridge. Response efforts. Earlier, dive teams from various state and local agencies were brought in to assist in search and rescue operations. According to Maryland State Police Secretary Colonel Roland L. Butler Jr., the mission started with 50 personnel and continued to grow before the Coast Guard announced Tuesday evening that it was suspending its active search and rescue operation and transitioning to a different phase. The investigation. Authorities are still working to establish exactly how the crash occurred. The National Transportation Safety Board will look into how the bridge was built and investigate the structure itself. It will take time to dig through whether the bridge had ever been flagged for any safety deficiencies. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy said. Rebuilding the bridge. U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen said the path to rebuilding the bridge will be long and expensive. Senior White House advisor Tom Perez told reporters Tuesday it's too early to tell how long it will take to rebuild the bridge. President Joe Biden said Tuesday he wants the federal government to bear the full cost of rebuilding the collapsed bridge, noting that it would not wait for the company who owns the container ship Dolly to shoulder the cost. Funding should come from the Federal Highway Administration as well as the bipartisan infrastructure law, but it may require additional funding from Congress. The next part said 2 of the missing construction workers from bridge collapse were from Guatemala. Foreign Ministry says 2 of the construction workers missing from the bridge collapse in Baltimore were from Guatemala. The country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement late Tuesday. Those missing included a 26-year-old originally from San Luis Potosí. The other is a 35-year-old from Camaton, Chiquimula. The statement said. The ministry said both were part of a work team repairing the asphalt on the bridge at the time of the accident. The statement did not name the 2 people missing, but it said the country's consul general in Maryland went to the area where the families of those affected are located, where he hopes to be able to meet with the brothers of both missing people. The consulate also issued a statement Tuesday saying its consul general in Maryland remains in contact with local authorities, and also confirmed that the two of those missing were of Guatemalan origin. 6 people who are believed to be part of a road construction crew are presumed unalived after Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed early Tuesday morning when a cargo ship hit the bridge's pillar. State and federal officials have not released information about the identities of any of the 6 missing workers. The next portion says underwater mapping of bridge collapse area to begin Wednesday. Baltimore Fire Chief says search operations near the Key Bridge collapse have shut down for the night due to dangerous conditions, but the process of underwater mapping with many local, state, and federal dive teams will begin Wednesday. Baltimore City Fire Chief James Wallace told CNN Anderson Cooper Tuesday night. Wallace said the portion of the Patapsco River is tidal influence, so it goes through tide cycles just like the open waters of the Chesapeake Bay does. The water depths in the area under the bridge vary from 40 feet to more than 60 feet, Wallace says. The deeper the divers go, the colder the temperatures they encounter, and the visibility is zero, he added. Wallace said when crews arrived Tuesday morning, the surface water temperatures of the Patapsco River were about 47 degrees with an air temperature of 44 to 45 degrees. And now it says, here's what you should know about the historic Francis Scott Key Bridge. The Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed early Tuesday after a massive container ship lost power and crashed into the iconic Baltimore Bridge, sending people and vehicles into the frigid Patapsco River. 6 people believed to be a part of a road construction crew are presumed unalive, and the Coast Guard has ended its active search and rescue mission. Here's what you should know about the historic bridge. How old? The Francis Scott Key Bridge, also referred to as just the Key Bridge, opened to traffic in March of 1977 and is the final link in the Baltimore Beltway according to the Maryland Transportation Authority. It crosses over the 50-foot deep Patapsco River, where former U.S. Attorney Francis Scott Key found inspiration to write the lyrics to the Star Spangled Banner, the MDTA says. How long? The bridge was 1.6 miles long when standing, MDTA reports. Traffic volume. More than 30,000 people commuted daily on the bridge, according to Maryland Governor Wes Moore. How much did it cost? The bridge cost $60.3 million to build, MDTA says. Since its collapse, President Joe Biden says he's committed to helping rebuild the bridge as soon as possible. About the port. Baltimore ranks as the 9th biggest U.S. port for international cargo. It handled a record of 52.3 million tons, valued at $80.8 billion in 2023. According to the Maryland state government, the port supports 15,330 direct jobs and 139,180 jobs in related services. About the ship. The bridge collapsed after a container vessel called Dali collided with one of its supports. Dali is operated by Singapore-based Synergy Group, but had been chartered to carry cargo by Danish shipping giant Maersk. The ship is about 984 feet long. According to the marine traffic data, that's the length of almost 3 football fields. And the next part says, Baltimore woman says bridge collapse was like a piece of family dissolved. For a long time, Baltimore resident Celie, who opted not to share her last name, seeing footage of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse Tuesday, was deeply personal. I was very heavy-hearted, Celie told CNN. Very tearful thinking about the families whose loved ones may be in the water and just remembering when the bridge was constructed, and it was just like a piece of family dissolved. It was really surreal because I knew what I was looking at, but I just didn't want to believe it, Celie said. Celie was at a prayer group Tuesday morning when she saw the news. She recalled being afraid when she first crossed the bridge while in Fort Maverick in 1975, but grew to like it because it saved time on the road. It was a main artery, just like a bloodline. It was a main artery to the other side of town. It was awesome. It beat going through the city all the time, she said. Elder Rashad A. Singletary, a senior pastor who led Tuesday night vigil at Mount Olive Baptist Church, told CNN that many church members watched the bridge's construction. It's a part of the community. A lot of our individuals in our congregation drive that bridge to go to work, and so now it's really a life-changing moment, he said. The next part, it says, heartbreaking conclusion to a challenging day. Maryland governor says as Coast Guard ended search operation. More than 18 hours after the collapse of the Baltimore Bridge, Maryland Governor Wes Moore said it was a heartbreaking conclusion after the Coast Guard ended the search and rescue operation for the 6 people who were on the bridge when it collapsed. It's a really heartbreaking conclusion to a challenging day, he said. We put every single asset possible, air, land, and sea, to find the missing people, he told reporters on Tuesday evening. While even though we're moving on now to a recovery mission, we're still fully committed to making sure that we're going to use every single asset to now bring a sense of closure to the families, the governor added. The next part, it says 6 people presumed unalived after Baltimore Bridge collapse. Coast Guard says, here's what we know. As the sun sets in Baltimore, 6 people are presumed unalived after a major bridge collapsed overnight Tuesday, according to the Coast Guard. The Francis Scott Key Bridge came down around 1:30 a.m. Eastern after a cargo ship collided with it. The Coast Guard said it has ended its active search and rescue operation for the missing construction workers who were on the bridge when it collapsed. What we know, 8 people were on the bridge when it fell, according to officials. At least 2 people were rescued. 1 was taken to the hospital and has been discharged. The Coast Guard has been searching for 6 other people, but around 7:30 p.m. Eastern, the Coast Guard said it has transitioned to a different phase of operation. Now it did not believe we are going to find any of these individuals alive. Rear Administrator Shannon Garrett said about the ship. The bridge collapsed after a container vessel called Dally collided with one of its supports. The vessel is operated by a Singapore-based Synergy Group, but had been chartered to carry cargo by Danish shipping giant Maersk. The U.S. Embassy in Singapore has been in contact with the country's Maritime and Port Authority, a State Department spokesperson said. The investigation. The National Transportation Safety Board is leading the investigation into the collapse. A team of 24 experts will dig into nautical operations, vessel operations, safety history records, owners, operators, company policy, and any safety management systems or program, said NTSB Chair Jennifer Humedy. A voyage data recorder will be critical to the investigation, she added. Dally left common shipping lane before crash. Large ships leaving the port of Baltimore typically follow a standard route under the Francis Scott Key Bridge, according to CNN analysis of historical shipping data. But Dally diverged from that path moments before the crash. Vehicles on the bridge. Officials are also working to verify the numbers of how many cars and people were on the bridge, Humedy said. Governor Wes Moore said the quick work of authorities in closing the bridge has saved lives. Radio traffic captured how authorities stopped traffic and worked to clear the bridge seconds before the impact. Maryland State Police Secretary Colonel Roland L. Butler Jr. said there is a distinct possibility more vehicles were on the bridge, but authorities have not found any evidence to support it. Looking ahead, NTSB will look into how the bridge was built and investigate the structure itself, including if it was flagged for any safety deficiencies. Humedy said the federal government has also directed its resources to help with search and rescue to reopen the port and rebuild the bridge. Vice President Kamala Harris said Earlier, President Joe Biden said the federal government will pay to fix the bridge. The economy. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg warned the collapse will have a serious impact on supply chains. Until the channel is reopened, ships will likely already be changing course for other East Coast ports. Ocean carriers are already being diverted from the port of Baltimore, where the bridge collapsed, to the port of Virginia to keep trade moving. NTSB will likely board the ship on Wednesday. The National Transportation Safety Board team will likely board the MV Dolly for the first time on Wednesday, Chair Jennifer Hamady told CNN. We will look for electronics throughout the vessel, anything we feel that could help us in the investigation, she said. Right now, investigators are identifying their first investigative targets, including who they will interview and which entities will be party to the investigation, Hamady said. Investigators are also preparing to look at the structure of the bridge and any debris that fell to the Patapsco River and onto the ship itself, she added. On the 24 NTSB investigators on the scene, Hamady said a specialized team would determine who was controlling the vessel and who was on the ship's bridge at the time of the crash. The next part says ship suffered a total blackout before the collision with bridge, Pilot Association officials said. The pilot of the ship that crashed into the Baltimore Bridge Tuesday did everything that he could have done to slow the ship and keep it from drifting toward the bridge, said Clay Diamond, Executive Director and General Counsel of the American Pilots Association. Diamond has been in close communication with the Association of Maryland Pilots over what unfolded on the Dally cargo ship in the moments leading up to the crash. Just minutes before the bridge, there was a total blackout on the ship, meaning that the ship lost engine power and electrical power. It was a complete blackout, Diamond told CNN. At that point, according to Diamond, the pilot did everything that he could have done to both slow the ship down and keep it from drifting to the right toward the bridge. The pilot quickly gave a string of orders calling for a hard rudder to port as far left as possible and for the anchor to be dropped. Additionally, Diamond said the pilot was the one who contacted the pilot dispatch office to shut down traffic to the bridge. Those were all the appropriate steps, but it happened so quickly and with so little lead time. Neither one of those maneuvers were enough, Diamond said. Diamond pointed out that while the lights on the boat could be seen turning back on, likely due to an emergency generator activating after the initial blackout, the ship engines never got running again. Maritime pilots who are required to be licensed temporarily board a ship and help guide the vessel as it maneuvers through local waters. Pilot training programs are extensive and rigorous, according to Diamond, requiring years of experience navigating ships on the water, classroom simulations, and working under the supervision of licensed pilots. The next part says authorities will make their best effort to recover the missing people to help families find closure, official says. Recovery efforts will be focused to find the missing people to provide closure to their families, said Colonel Roland L. Butler Jr., Secretary of Maryland State Police. At this point, we do not know where they are, but we intend to give it our best effort to help these families find closure, he said at a news briefing on Tuesday evening. The next part said conditions have made it dangerous for first responders and divers to be in the water, officials said. Conditions have changed and made it dangerous for first responders and divers to be in the water around the collapsed Baltimore Bridge, Colonel Roland L. Butler Jr., Secretary of Maryland State Police, said at a news briefing on Tuesday. This comes as authorities announced they're moving from search and rescue operations to a recovery phase for the missing people. The changing conditions out there have made it dangerous for the first responders, the divers in the water, he explained. We still have surface ships out overnight. Elaborating on the changing conditions, he said, the last thing we want to do is put divers in the water with changing currents, low temperatures, very poor visibility, and so much metal and other unknown objects in the water. All it takes is one object to strike an individual, and all of a sudden we have a first responder trying to recover another first responder. He said divers are expected to be in to be back in the water at 6 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday, when we'll find ourselves in a better position to understand the dynamic of what we're dealing with and to address the issues in a much safer manner. And then it says authorities only have information on 6 missing individuals, Coast Guard said. The Coast Guard is only aware of 6 missing individuals following the bridge collapse in Baltimore Harbor, Rear End Minister Shannon Gilbert said at a Tuesday news conference. No information to support that there were additional vehicles on the bridge when it collapsed. A Maryland law enforcement official said while there is a distinct possibility that there could have been more vehicles on the bridge when it collapsed, they have not found any evidence to support that. As unfortunate as it may be, it's a distinct possibility. However, we don't have any information to support that at this point, Maryland State Police Secretary Colonel Roland L. Butler Jr. said. Authorities have been able to find 3 passenger vehicles, a cement truck, and a fifth vehicle submerged in the water using infrared and side-scan sonar technology. Baltimore City Fire Chief Jane Wallace previously told CNN. Radio traffic captured how authorities stopped traffic and worked to clear the bridge seconds before the impact. The next part says divers from various state and local agencies brought in to help with search. Dive teams from various state and local agencies were brought in to assist in the search and recovery operation after the collapse of the Baltimore Bridge. Maryland State Police Secretary Colonel Roland L. Butler said at a news conference. Sonar was also used as part of the research and rescue operation, he added. From the outset, we've moved all those resources in, Butler explained. We're doing our best in some very difficult times and difficult conditions. Coast Guard is suspending its active search. The Coast Guard is ending its active search and rescue operation for the 6 unaccounted people who were on the Francis Scott Bridge when it collapsed. Rear Administrator Sharon Gilbert said that based on the length of time since the bridge collapsed and the water temperatures, we do not believe that we are going to find any of these individuals still alive. The bridge collapsed at around 1:30 a.m. Eastern after a container ship hit the pillar. The active search and rescue efforts were suspended around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Gilbert said. Gilbert emphasized the Coast Guard is not leaving, but said it's just going to transition to a different phase. The next part is the path to rebuilding the Francis Scott Key Bridge will be long and expensive, Maryland Senator says. U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen described Tuesday as a tragic day in Baltimore during an interview with CNN Wolf Blitzer Tuesday evening. Van Hollen praised workers who stopped traffic after receiving the ship's Mayday signal. The effort goes on to search for those who are missing, Van Hollen said, but added the immediate issue besides the search and rescue is opening up that channel. I understand there are about 4 ships in that port that can get out. I understand there were about 20 ships that were waiting to come in, Van Hollen said. Van Hollen said there are thousands of workers employed at the Port of Baltimore and tens of thousands more depend on what is one of the most vibrant ports in the country, the biggest port for automobiles. According to Van Hollen, Maryland plans to access the Emergency Relief Fund within the Federal Highway Administration, though that won't be enough to rebuild the bridge. That will be long and expensive, Van Hollen said. Van Hollen said he is in communication with his Senate colleagues and plans to work with the House on relief efforts. I hope we can move something on an emergency basis, he said. We hope the country will come together and support Baltimore at this time. And then the next part said, 6 presumed unalived after bridge collapse, the Baltimore Sun reports. At least 6 people are presumed dead following the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse Tuesday in Baltimore, according to reporting from Baltimore Sun. Jennifer Pritzker, Executive Vice President of the Prana Builders, called the news a terrible, unforeseen tragedy. None of us could have imagined this could happen. We are all kind of shocked and distressed, he told the Sun. 2 people were pulled from the Patapsco River, the Baltimore fire chief previously said Tuesday. Earlier, family members of workers who were on the bridge at the time of the collapse spoke with CNN and Bronner Builders Construction Agency, where they were picking up vehicles belonging to their relatives. CNN has reached out to Bronner Builders for comment. The next one says Carnival will temporarily move cruise operations to Norfolk after bridge collapse. Carnival Cruise Line will temporarily move operations to Norfolk, Virginia, while rescue and cleanup efforts continue at the Key Bridge collapse site, the company said in a news release. The Carnival Legend is supposed to return from its current sailing on March the 31st and will now return to Norfolk. Guests will be bused back to Baltimore, the release said. The next sailing will operate from and return to Norfolk, the company added. Our thoughts remain with the impacted families and first responders in Baltimore, said Christine Duffy, president of Carnival Cruise Line. We appreciate the pledge made by President Biden today to dedicate all available resources to reopen Baltimore Harbor to marine traffic as soon as possible. As those plans are finalized, we will update our future cruise guests on when we will return home to Baltimore. But in the meantime, we appreciate the quick response and support from officials in Norfolk. Now, the next part said Baltimore city officials and faith leaders hold vigil and pray for families of those missing in bridge collapse. Faith leaders from across the city and residents joined Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott and other city officials at a vigil Tuesday to pray for victims and families of those missing after the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Mount Olive Baptist Church was filled with hymns sung by attendees following Senior Pastor Elder Rashad a Singletary's request for prayers for civic leaders, first responders, and those affected by the collapse. We come as a community to pray, not only to pray, but to provide support, Singletary said. Scott told attendees a lot of prayer is needed at this moment. This is a tragedy that is unthinkable, but one thing I know about those of us in Baltimore, whether you're in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, whenever there's tragedy, we come together, he said. Scott said holding families in prayer is important at this time because we can only imagine what is going through their minds and through their hearts and through their bodies. Baltimore County Executive Johnny Oskowinski, who also spoke at the vigil, told attendees he is thankful that state leaders and President Joe Biden have reached out in support during this time. The next part says search and rescue team continues to grow, Fire Chief says. Baltimore City Fire Chief James Wallace said the team responding to the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse continues to grow as an active marine search operation is underway. The mission started with 50 personnel, including 8 dive teams, and continues to grow, Wallace told CNN with Blister Tuesday. Sonar has been used to mark vehicles that have been found in the water, Wallace said. One patient was transported to a local trauma center and is in serious condition, Wallace said, while another person who was on the bridge refused service and wasn't injured. Wallace said harbor containment boom has been placed around the vessel to try to contain the oil sheen. He said they smelled diesel fuel early this morning when it was still dark before they could actually see the sheen. The next part said authorities share updates on the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Here's the latest. Authorities shared updates on the investigation along with the search and rescue operation underway after the collapse of Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge. Here's all the critical details. What National Transportation Safety Board said. Chair Jennifer Hamady said NTSB, which arrived on site at 6 a.m., is leading the investigation into the bridge collapse, while the U.S. Coast Guard carries out a search and rescue operation. NTSB is collecting information from the command post. A team of 24 experts will dig into nautical operation, vessel operation, safety history records, owners, operators, company policies, and any sort of safety management systems or programs, Hamady said. A voyage data recorder will be critical to the investigation, she added. what the Maryland governor said. Governor Westmore said he spoke to President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and said he is grateful for their full-throated support. He also thanked the members of the philanthropic community and the private sector offering support, especially those who have stepped in to provide meals for first responders. The focus is still on finding people. 6 people remain missing, Moore said, adding that air, land, and sea resources are all being deployed in what is still an active search and rescue mission. No questions were answered on injuries or possible fatalities. Search teams are working to verify the numbers about how many cars and people were on the bridge during the collapse. Hamady said local authorities like Maryland State Police and Maryland Transportation Authority, along with federal partners, will work to verify if there are other victims, she added. Bridge structure will be investigated. NTSB will look into how the bridge was built and investigate the structure itself. It will take time to dig through whether the bridge had ever been flagged for any safety deficiencies. It just sounds like this is just repeating some other stuff. Now this one goes into Baltimore mayor. This is an unthinkable and unspeakable tragedy. Baltimore mayor on Tuesday said the focus in the city remains on the search for the 6 people still unaccounted for after the bridge collapsed earlier in the day. This is an unthinkable and unspeakable tragedy, Mayor Brandon Scott told CNN's Phil Mattingly. First responders are still actively looking for 6 people, the mayor said, noting that the bridge is iconic in Baltimore and that many residents don't recall a time when it wasn't visible in the harbor. The key bridge, built in the 1970s, served as the outermost crossing of the Baltimore harbor. When asked about rebuilding, Scott said this is a full team effort to find these individuals and help Baltimore and this community rebuild. But today our focus is, and rightly so, on those families, on those individuals that we're actively searching for. The next part said, worker who survived bridge collapse described watching ship get closer, governor says. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said he talked to the worker who made it off the collapsed bridge unharmed. The worker described seeing the ship come toward the bridge in the moments before the collision, the governor said Tuesday. According to officials, there were 8 construction workers on the bridge at the time of the incident. 6 are still unaccounted for, and 2 were rescued. Of those, 1 was taken to the hospital and the other was okay, they said. The moments between when the crew called for a mayday and the moments that the bridge actually collapsed we're talking seconds, Moore said on CNN. The governor said the fact that the person survived and was able to converse was pretty miraculous when you consider what happened and the speed and the intensity of which it happened last night. Moore said the person told him they did see the ship as it was coming toward the bridge, but that wasn't an unusual sight for the workers. They saw ships coming and going every night, the governor said. But when you see the size, the enormity of that kind of vessel coming at the speed that it was at, and even the slightest adjustments that you saw here means the difference between a successful passage and a catastrophe, Moore said. Port of Baltimore closure could cause traffic tie-ups and higher shipping prices. The bridge collapse that has indefinitely halted the flow of ships in and out of the Port of Baltimore could hurt the local economy, strain supply chains, and scramble deliveries along the U.S. East Coast. The key bridge collapsed after a container vessel called Dally collided with one of its supports. Dally is operated by a Singapore-based Synergy Group and had been chartered to carry cargo by Danish shipping giant Maersk. Baltimore ranks as the 9th biggest U.S. port for international cargo. It handled a record 52.3 million tons valued at $80.8 billion in 2023, according to the Maryland state government. The port supports 15,330 direct jobs and 139,180 jobs in related services. Baltimore is also the leading U.S. port for farming and construction machinery, as well as imports of sugar and gypsum, and the second in the country for exporting coal. In the long run, despite the potential for some increased cost of shipping and some traffic tie-ups, and congestion. Mark Zandi, chief economist for Moody's Analytics, said the disruptions aren't likely to cause problems for the U.S. economy as a whole, since the goods are likely to find other ports. Part of the issue is determining the potential added cost to the shipping is the unknown of how long the port stays closed, and it's too early to say when ships will begin calling on the port once again, Maryland Governor Wes Moore said on Monday. So this is a pretty lengthy article. But we're almost done. So the next part says, too early to tell how long it will take to rebuild Baltimore's bridge, senior White House advisor says. Senior White House advisor Tom Perez told reporters Tuesday that it's too early to tell how long it would take to rebuild Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge. We want to get it done as soon as possible, said Perez, the director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. There's going to be a lot of work and it's not going to happen overnight. President Joe Biden has called in every federal agency with any sort of expertise on equity to work on the bridge, he added. Separately, Perez also did not rule out the possibility of litigation or other efforts that would seek compensation for the cost of rebuilding the bridge. So the next part says, Transportation Secretary says bridge collapse will have a major impact on supply chains. The Baltimore Bridge collapse will have a serious impact on supply chains, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said on Tuesday. There is no question that this will be a major and protracted impact to supply chains. It's too soon to offer estimates on what it will take to clear the channel and reopen the port, Buttigieg said during a news conference. Some background. Baltimore is the 9th biggest U.S. port for international cargo. According to the Maryland state government, the port supports 15,330 direct jobs and 139,180 jobs in related services. Until the channel is reopened, ships will likely already be changing course for other East Coast ports. The Dowley, the ship that hit the bridge and caused the collapse, was the only container vessel in the port at the time of the collision, but 7 container vessels had been scheduled to arrive through Saturday, said Judah Levine, a researcher and logistics firm Freightos. And then the last one says U.S. Coast Guard detected an oil sheen on the water near bridge wreckage, but fuel source not yet determined. Members of the U.S. Coast Guard have detected an oil sheen on the water near the wreckage of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, but they have not yet determined the source of the fuel discharge, according to USCG Petty Officer Kimberly Reeves. USCG Command Center officials haven't yet determined whether the sheen is the result of a fuel spill from the ship that collided with the Key Bridge or if it's from the vehicles on the bridge that fell into the water after the collision, Reeves told CNN. Officials also do not yet know how much fuel has spilled into the water, Reeves added. A spokesperson from the Environmental Protection Agency told CNN they haven't received any information from USCG confirming a fuel leak happened. EPA does have an on-scene coordinator ready to assist, according to EPA Region 3 spokesperson Sean Egan. Maryland Department of Environment officials are conducting water sampling both upriver and downriver of the site of the bridge collapse, according to department spokesperson Jay Apperson. We are ready to do whatever we need to do to minimize any effects to the Patapsco River as we work in close coordination with our partner agencies, Serena McLean, Maryland Secretary of the Environment, said in a statement provided to CNN. Federal resources have been directed to help in collapsed bridge response, Vice President Harris says. Vice President Kamala Harris said the federal government has directed its resources to help with the ongoing search and rescue operation in Baltimore after a bridge collapsed on Tuesday. At the beginning of her remarks in North Carolina, she said she spoke with Maryland Governor Wes Moore. The federal resources will be used to assist with the search and rescue, to reopen the port, and to rebuild the bridge as quickly as possible. And of course, I know we all will stand and continue to stand with the people of Maryland, Harris said. Earlier Tuesday, in remarks from the White House, President Joe Biden told reporters he directed his team to move heaven and earth to reopen the port and rebuild the bridge as soon as humanly possible, promising to travel to Baltimore as quickly as I can to survey the damage himself. The next part said investigation into possible vehicles on the bridge is ongoing, Maryland governor says. There is an ongoing investigation looking into possible vehicles on the bridge at the time of the collapse, Maryland Governor Westmore said at Tuesday's news conference. He added that what he could confirm is that the quick work of authorities in closing the bridge has saved lives. And the next part says 6 people remain missing, Maryland governor says. 6 people remain missing following the Baltimore bridge collapse during a news conference on Tuesday, Maryland Governor Westmore said at a news conference Tuesday. Moore said search and rescue efforts continue and that there is no new information. The next part said path to normalcy would not be easy, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said about rebuilding. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said the road to recovery and rebuilding in the wake of the bridge collapse will not be quick and it will certainly be costly. But we will rebuild, he noted. Buttigieg, I cannot say this man's name. It's Buttigieg. Reaffirmed President Biden's earlier commitment that the federal government will provide all the support and resources needed to rebuild. This is no ordinary bridge, Buttigieg said. This has been part of the skyline of this region for longer than many of us have been alive, so the path to normalcy will not be easy. Buttigieg called Baltimore bridge collapse a unique circumstance. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg called the Baltimore bridge collapse a unique circumstance. I do not know of a bridge that has been constructed to withstand a direct impact from a vessel of this size, he said Tuesday at a news conference. He said the country would take this situation and learn from it. The next part said this is an excruciating day for several families, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg acknowledged the families affected by the collapse of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. We should also recognize that this is an excruciating day for several families who went to bed last night having it be a normal night and woke up today to news that no one wants to receive, he said at a press briefing Tuesday afternoon. They are hoping and praying, and we are hoping and praying with them. We are all putting our arms around the community of Baltimore, and that is true for all of this country, he added. Air, land, and sea resources deployed in search and rescue mission, governor says. Air, land, and sea resources are all being deployed to assist in the search and rescue efforts after Baltimore bridge collapsed on early Tuesday, Maryland Governor Westmore said. There is not a single resource that we will hold off deploying, the governor said. He said he wants to make sure the operation is carried out to its fullest intent. This will not be short. There's going to be a long road, Moore said. There's going to be a long road, not just as we go from search and rescue. There will be a long road as we talk about what does the future of this region, the future of this area look like. Next part says Maryland Senator says reopening channel is critical to state's economy. Maryland Senator Ben Cardin said that reopening the Patapsco River Channel is critical to the state's economy. It affects many jobs. It affects not only jobs here in Maryland, but around the country and world. So our next priority is to make sure we get that channel open. And then we also need to fix and replace the bridge for the surface transportation, Cardin said during a news conference on Tuesday. The next part said Maryland Governor Westmore thanks community for making sure first responders are fed. Maryland Governor Wes Moore on Tuesday afternoon thanked the members of the philanthropic community and the private sector who have been reaching out and offering support, especially those who have stepped in to provide meals for the first responders. Everybody has raised their hand to serve, and I can tell you it's so deeply appreciated, Moore said. It's so deeply felt, and for everyone who was offering prayers and support, I can tell you those prayers are working and we are grateful. The next part says, Maryland governor says he spoke with Biden and Harris after bridge collapse. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said he spoke with President Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris after the collapse of the Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge, saying they voiced their full-throated support. Also had the chance to speak with both the president and vice president, who have been full-throated in their support of everything that we're doing here in Maryland. And we just want to say how grateful we are to them, Moore said Tuesday at a news conference. Next part says, Maryland governor says situation is an active search and rescue mission. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said the Baltimore Bridge collapse situation is still an active search and rescue mission. There is not a single resource that we will hold off on deploying, he said at a Tuesday's news conference. He went on to say the mission will not be short and there's going to be a long road. The next part says U.S. Transportation Secretary called Maryland Governor around 3:30 a.m. Eastern about Baltimore Bridge collapse. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said that Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg called him at 3:30 a.m. Eastern about the Baltimore Bridge collapse. During a news conference on Tuesday, Moore said Buttigieg and his team are now in Baltimore looking at the damage and also identifying areas where they can help. Next part said Maryland Governor thanks first responders for nonstop work following bridge collapse. Maryland Governor Wes Moore thanked first responders who arrived on the scene of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge in the overnight hours and have not stopped since. He said their efforts have been truly remarkable. These are individuals who in the middle of the night jumped into some very challenging environments, some very challenging territories, and have not stopped in their quest of making sure that each and every person is seen and supported and lifted up, Moore said. The governor also said that he had the opportunity to spend time with the families of the people who were on the bridge. Officials said earlier Tuesday that at least 6 people are still unaccounted for and search and rescue operations are a priority. The next part says Baltimore City Council member expressed heartbreak following bridge collapse. Baltimore City Council members Felicia Porter said she has a lot of questions following the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse early Tuesday, and she's eager for authorities to complete their investigation. One of my first emotions is definitely just heartbreak, she told CNN. Boris Sanchez on CNN News Central when asked about her initial reaction to the collapse. Porter also told Sanchez on Tuesday afternoon that a body had been recovered from the river, but later said she misspoke. The U.S. Coast Guard continued to search for 6 individuals after the collapse. Baltimore Orioles Council planned fan event following bridge collapse. The Baltimore Orioles canceled the team's planned workout and fans rally scheduled for Tuesday following the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore. In light of today's tragedy, tonight open workout and rally for fans is canceled, the team posted on X. Our thoughts are with Baltimore. Earlier in the day, the Orioles released a statement extending their thoughts and prayers to those affected by the incident. We are devastated by the news of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse and send our thoughts and prayers to those impacted by this tragedy, the statement read. We thank the brave first responders and the men and women actively working on rescue efforts. Baltimore, we're a tight-knit and resilient city. Together, we will get through this. The Orioles are scheduled to reopen the 2024 MLB season at Baltimore's Camden Yards against the Los Angeles Angels on Thursday. Army Corps of Engineers is in touch with Baltimore following bridge collapse, Pentagon says. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Commanding General Scott A. Spellman has been in touch with the Port of Baltimore about the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge Deputy Defense Secretary Sabrina Singh said Tuesday. Obviously, it is very early in the process, but I can tell you that the commanding general of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has been in touch with the Port of Baltimore, and the department is remaining in close contact with local and state officials and stands ready if any assistance is required, Singh said. The next one says NTSB chief says search teams are still verifying the numbers of cars and workers on the bridge during collapse. The NTSB has been hearing lots of numbers about how many cars and people were on the bridge during the collapse. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Humbley said Tuesday. Search teams are working to verify those numbers, she said, but it's not for the NTSB to nail them down. Instead, she said local authorities like Maryland State Police and the Maryland Transportation Authority, along with federal partners, will work to verify if there are other victims. Nobody is going by a number, Hamidi said. They're looking and they're searching. That's what's important. The next part says too early to tell if reports of power outage on the ship are true, NTSB chief says. It's too early to tell at this stage of the investigation if reports of power outage on the ship are true, National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Humbley said. We have been made aware of those same reports about there being a power outage. I've also seen statements, media releases from Singapore as well. It's something that we take in, but something that we have to verify through our investigation that was what was part of the contributing cause here, she said. She told reporters on Tuesday afternoon, so too early to tell. Early Tuesday, Maryland Governor Wes Moore said the crew of the ship notified officials that it had lost power prior to the crash. Lights on the ship flickered and a dark plume of smoke could be seen billowing from it before it veered toward a bridge pillar shortly before the impact, CNN analysis of data from marine traffic shows. Hamidi said it would take time to determine whether the bridge has been flagged for any safety deficiencies. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Humbley said it would take time to dig through whether the Francis Scott Key Bridge has ever been flagged for any safety deficiencies. Humbley, at a news conference, pointed to the agency's recent investigation of the Fern Hollow Bridge collapse in Pittsburgh in 2022, which took almost 2 years to get information on bridge inspections and whether or not records existed, she said. It's a very cumbersome process, Humbley said. It's a very meticulous process where they have to dig through a lot of information, so it will not be something that we will be able to verify well on. Maryland Governor Wes Moore, during an earlier news conference, said that the now collapsed Baltimore Bridge was fully up to code and had no structural issues. Part of the investigation will look into how the collapsed bridge was constructed, NTSB officials said. A National Transportation Safety Board official said that the structure of the collapsed Baltimore Bridge will be looked into as part of the agency's investigation. There are some questions about the structure of the bridge, NTSB Chair Jennifer Humbley said. Humbley said that NTSB is aware of what a structure should have and will look into and how the Francis Scott Key Bridge was built and investigate the structure itself. All of that will be a part of our investigation. We go very broad in our investigation, she said. Priority has been on the people as search and rescue efforts continue, NTSB chair says. More than 12 hours after a cargo ship hit a Baltimore bridge, causing it to collapse, the head of the National Transportation Safety Board said focus is still on finding people. Chairperson Jennifer Humbley said she could not share many details about what happened yet, and the priority is search and rescue operations. The NTSB is leading the investigation into the incident at the Francis Scott Key Bridge. At least 6 people are still unaccounted for, officials said previously. The NTSB doesn't speculate, we provide facts, she said. So there isn't a lot we can share right now because the focus has been on the people. The next part said NTSB plans to look into if and when the ship dropped its anchor, chair says. The Singapore registered deli container ship that struck the Baltimore Bridge dropped its anchor prior to impact as a part of its emergency procedure, according to the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Hominy said the agency will look into if and when the ship dropped the anchor, but there is no information as of now. NTSB investigation will look at prior safety inspections of the vessel, chair says. The National Safety Board investigation will look in depth at safety information, anything that may have occurred before Tuesday's incident, any safety history for the vessel, and any sort of maintenance that was done. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Hominy said, "We will look at all of that, but it's much too early for all of that," she said. NTSB did not board the ship today to avoid interfering with search and rescue, agency chief says. Officials from the National Transportation Safety Board decided not to board the ship today while the search and rescue operations are underway for the missing people, Chair Jennifer Hominy said. "We chose not to board the vessel today to allow some time for the search and recovery, which we did not want to interfere with," she said Tuesday at a press briefing. Meanwhile, the engineering team assisting in the investigation is trying to get the recorder available on the ship, she said. She declined to provide more information on the recorders. "We have an engineering team, we have survival factors, and then we have a team here that is getting the recorders," she said. "We do have some information, but we need to verify that information first before I provide that information," she added. Voyage data recorder will be a critical part of investigation, NTSB board chair says. A voyage data recorder will be critical to the National Transportation Safety Board's investigation, agency chair Jennifer Hominy said on Tuesday. She stated that a recorder team is on site as a part of the investigation effort. Team of 24 experts will evaluate vessel operations, safety history, and record, NTSB chair says. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Hominy said there is a lot of information that officials need to collect following the collapse of Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge. A team of 24 experts will dig into nautical operations, vessel operations, safety history records, owners, operators, company policy, and any sort of safety management systems or program, Hominy said. NTSB is standing back to allow Coast Guard to continue search and rescue efforts. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Hominy said the agency is standing back to allow the U.S. Coast Guard to continue their search and rescue operations as NTSB gathers more information from the command post. There's a lot of information that we can begin to collect, Hominy said. NTSB will not comment on possible fatalities, board chair says. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Hominy said the agency will not answer questions about injuries or the possible fatalities following from the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Hominy directed reporters to other agencies for updates. Search and rescue efforts are ongoing. 6 people remain unaccounted for following the bridge collapse. 2 people were rescued from the water earlier Tuesday. NTSB is leading the investigations, agency chief says. National Transportation Safety Board will lead the investigation of the collapse of Baltimore Francis Scott Key Bridge, NTSB Chair Jennifer Hominy said Tuesday afternoon. Under our memorandum of understanding with the Coast Guard, the NTSB is leading the investigation. The Coast Guard will support this investigation, Hominy said. NTSB arrived at the collapsed Key Bridge at 6 a.m. Eastern. The National Transportation Safety Board arrived at the site of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge at 6 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday, according to NTSB Chair Jennifer Hominy. Now, National Transportation Safety Board gives an update on Baltimore Bridge collapse. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, is giving an update on the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore early Tuesday after it was hit by a container ship. Officials said at least 6 people are still unaccounted for and search and rescue operations are underway. There was a crew of construction workers on the bridge when it fell, according to authorities. The NTSB already launched a GO team to investigate the incident, it said earlier Tuesday. This team consists of technical experts and specialists across the agency on rotational duty assignment to respond as quickly as possible, it said. U.S. Embassy in touch with Singapore's Port Authority, State Department says. The U.S. Embassy in Singapore has been in contact with the country's maritime and port authority in the wake of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said Tuesday. Miller said Singapore's maritime and port authority has offered to provide assistance to the U.S. Coast Guard. The tanker, which collided with the bridge causing the collapse, was Singapore flagged and bound for Sri Lanka, but Miller said he was not aware of any contacts with Sri Lanka. The ship was chartered by Danish shipping company Maersk and was carrying their customers' cargo, the Danish shipping company told CNN. It also said the ship Dali is operated by charter vessel company Synergy Group. Bridge collapse will have lasting impact on Maryland's economy, local union head says. The president of the International Longshore Men's Association Local 333 in Baltimore, Maryland said the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge will have major consequences for the port's workforce and the state's economy for the foreseeable future. We are at a standstill. We make our living off of import and export cargo, unloading and loading, discharging and loading ships. Scott Cohen, president of ILA Local 333, said this is going to put a very big strain on the economy in the state of Maryland because the Port of Baltimore is one of the main drivers of the economy of Maryland. This is going to create a big problem. The ILA's work relies on the flow of cargo ships through the port as its workers are responsible for securing loads on and off the deck, operating the cranes and running the boxes throughout the yard. Until those ships can come up and down the bay, the little bit of cargo that's in the terminal will be imported and exported out, and then we'll be waiting for the channel to open. I don't know how long it's going to take, Cohen added. Cohen said that these massive cargo shops are very difficult to stop, especially when you face issues with power outage and propulsion. This is not like a car. They don't have brakes, Cohen said. Ocean carriers are being diverted to Port of Virginia after Baltimore bridge collapse. Ocean carriers are being moved away from the Port of Baltimore after the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed on Tuesday. The Port of Virginia and the Port of Baltimore are coordinating diverting to the ships to the Port of Virginia to eliminate the traffic in Baltimore's port to keep trade moving. The Virginia and Maryland Departments of Transportation are also working to ensure uniform signage along roads all the way up from Virginia into Maryland. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin said, "We have our first ocean carrier that was supposed to be heading to Baltimore, making a stop in Virginia and unloading all of their Baltimore cargo here. We've got capacity to do it, and I think that's really important," Youngkin said. "We've got high-level interaction everywhere needed, and we just wait to be called as soon as we are. We'll be moving," he said. He added. Patient discharged at University of Maryland Medical Center following bridge collapse. The patient, who was taken to the R. Adams Cowley Shock Center following the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, has been discharged, according to a release from the University of Maryland Medical Center. Officials will hold a virtual briefing Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. with hospital officials to speak about how the hospital handled the incident. Patient details will not be disclosed. The next one says it's been just over 12 hours since the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Here's what we know now. The Francis Scott Key Bridge, Baltimore collapse. Okay, I am tired of reading this. Condolences to the family. I thought we were almost done, but this is an ongoing read. So if you would like to read more about this situation, you can go to CNN and look up this particular article on the Baltimore Key Bridge collapses after ship collision. So I do want to send condolences out to the people who were working on that bridge, riding on that bridge, walking on that bridge, everyone involved in that whole ordeal. Condolences to the families who have not yet recovered their loved ones. Thankful for all of the rescue efforts made. So yeah, I just wanted to find out a little bit more about what was going on, but I did not know this article was extremely long. So I'm just going to leave it right there. And once again, you can go to CNN.com and look up the Baltimore Key Bridge collapses after ship collision. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. The next topic is coming from The Guardian, and it reads, "Hate cannot be reasoned with, so why is Black radio hosting conversations with Candace Owens?" So yeah. As a provocateur, Candace Owens stands alone. The recently fired Daily Wire host built a reputation as one of the few Black voices in right-wing media by tossing Black culture and Black people under the conservative bus. She embraced Donald Trump's lawlessness while castigating Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Black victims of police brutality as thugs and criminals. For Owens, the January 6th insurrection was virtually nothing. While the Black Lives Matter movement is about Black anarchy, she told a congressional subcommittee that white supremacy and white nationalism is not a problem that is harming Black America. According to her, everything wrong with Black America is caused by Black culture and white liberals, but affirmative action is an affront to whites. Like her former bosses at the right-wing youth organization Turning Point USA, Owens doesn't believe in a systemic racism because she's never been a slave in this country. When it comes to anti-Blackness, she is as remarkably consistent as the angry thongs that spat on third graders desecrating schools while painting the civil rights movement as violent. To be fair, Owens has no legitimate education, experience, or expertise in politics, media, sociology, or public policy. She is just a person who says things. Her status as the darling of far-right punditry is solely built on oxymoron of a Black woman who is unapologetically anti-Black. So when she claims she was terrified by the prospect of DEI airplane pilots, the irony that she might be the most unqualified diversity hire in America was lost on her. Owens has no legitimate expertise in politics, media, sociology, or public policy. She is just a person who says things. In the past month, Owen has appeared on two mainstays of contemporary Black culture, the Joe Budden podcast and The Breakfast Club, where she told hosts that Black people had done better under Donald Trump and that welfare had destroyed the Black family. Talking directly to Black audiences was presented as a bold move for someone who usually presents her anti-Black views from the safe space of right-wing outlets. Unlike many people, I do not believe that Candace Owens' politics cancel out her Blackness. Owens is a part of the Black community and all Black stories are valid. Besides, many African Americans subscribe to conservative principles. Everyone knows a Black Republican. You can usually tell by the quality of their edge up. But as with everything, there are limits. While researching my recent book, Black AF History, the unwhitewashed story of America, I wanted to use contemporaneous first-hand experiences of Black people in America, free and enslaved, liberal and conservative. As I sifted through archives of Black-owned newspapers, journals, and other institutions built to amplify and preserve Black perspective, I encountered a recurring phrase that explains why so many Black stories have been erased. Burned by a white mob. It is a one-sentence obituary that describes the destiny of the 631 Black schools damaged or destroyed between 1864 and 1876. That mob lit the torches that burned Black Wall Street and detonated the bombs that blew 16th Street Baptist Church to bits. And because the truth of the Black existence is preserved through our voices and stories, Black media has historically been the most frequent target of the white mob. White mobs destroyed dozens of Black-owned newspapers, including the Tulsa Star, one of many Black-owned businesses destroyed by the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. The Wilmington Race Massacre started with a hunt for the owner of the Daily Record, the town's Black-run newspaper. In many cases, the mob's success at silencing their foes is noted by an addendum: no surviving copies exist. The attack on Nicole Hannah-Jones was a group project started by a white mob that did not want the 1619 Project, the New York Times, Chronicle of American slavery to exist. When the former South Carolina governor, Nikki Haley, removed slavery from the story of the Civil War, she was echoing the sentiments of the United Daughters of the Confederacy's Lost Cause movement. The UDC was essentially a white mob who did not want textbooks to reflect how the South's allegiance to race-based human trafficking caused the bloodiest war in American history. Moms for Liberty anti-woke agenda is just the latest campaign by a mob that does not want our stories to survive or the truth to exist. Candace Owens is a part of that mob. I've heard journalists, hosts, and personalities I know and respect explain why they invite people like Candace Owens, Nikki Haley, who repeatedly refused to acknowledge systemic racism during her Breakfast Club appearance, Larry Elder, who bolted from Van Latham and Rachel Lindsley's popular Higher Learning podcast, and others onto their platforms. For many, it is a futile attempt to prove their journalistic integrity by presenting both sides of the political spectrum. Some rightly want to expose the white supremacist fallacies at the foundation of these arguments. Others simply want to have a compelling conversation and capitalize off the ratings boosts that come with it. I know some of these hosts personally and don't believe there is ill intent, but they are wrong. Most of the time, the conversations are not even interesting. They only serve the people who benefit from upholding white supremacy. The people who fund Nikki Haley's anti-Black agenda undoubtedly saw her Breakfast Club appearance as redemption for her racist historical revisionism. These guests have never had a single thought that hasn't already been uttered by someone with whiter skin and a brighter tiki torch. Ironically, a day after she appeared on the Breakfast Club, the Daily Wire announced on X that it had parted ways with Owens. After championing herself as a free thinker, Owens finally realized her freedoms were ultimately tethered to her willingness to distance herself from Blackness. This is not a criticism of the contemporary stewards of Black media, it's a criticism of us. Countering the persuasive, almost inescapable bigotry that informs the negative perceptions of African Americans is why Black media exists. For years, radio stations banned race music and white-owned media outlets refused to cover Black issues. Black journalists chronicled the lynching epidemic during the Red Summer of 1919 when others wouldn't. The Los Angeles Times, the Kansas City Star, and National Geographic are just a few of the legacy media outlets that have recently apologized for being complicit in racial oppression. Owens and others know they can exploit Black America's collective willingness to forgive, and they will never have to accept accountability. This is not a criticism of the contemporary stewards of Black media. It is a criticism of us. I marvel at the platforms Button, The Breakfast Club, Charlemagne, and others managed to build outside of the mainstream system. But these outlets do not belong to them. The survival and success of Black media platforms are only possible because of the culture, history, and communities that Black people collectively built. Individual entrepreneurs may have paid for the microphones and rented the studios, but their only credibility comes from Black audiences who trust these hosts as caretakers of our stories. We are the owners, and we should use our stake as shareholders to demand protection and safety from the mobs that have historically consumed us. At the very least, we should accept one thing in return: do not hurt us. We cannot allow Owens and her fellow conservative ideologies to use institutions built for black people's labor to gain more favor with the mobsters. To be clear, these ideological adversaries have no real expectation of convincing black audiences to see the conservative side. They know that every black person who has set foot on American soil has heard every side of white people's argument. Through our tax dollars and pocketbooks, black Americans have financed the anti-blackness that is embedded in our textbooks, instilled in our police officers, and broadcast across our airwaves. We should not tolerate those who influence the mobs that spill our ancestors' blood and erase their stories from the history books. At bare minimum, we should not amplify their cause. There is no logic to white supremacy. Hate cannot be reasoned with. Yet, far too often, these black hosts wrongly assume that they are equipped to counter these bigoted, time-tested arguments. The white majority has been on the wrong side of every single racial issue in the history of this country, from slavery to police brutality. But because of ego, greed, or a genuine desire for meaningful discourse, the custodians of black media somehow believe a simple conversation will dismantle 400 years of white supremacist indoctrination. It's an assumption that bedeviled some of the most fearless souls in black history. Webb Du Bois, one of the most brilliant Americans who ever lived, realized this. Du Bois planned to write an editorial in the Atlanta Constitution telling white Southerners about the injustice of mob brutality. On his way to the newspaper office, he passed a store selling the knuckles of Sam Hose, a lynching victim, and changed his mind. I made up my mind that knowledge wasn't enough, Du Bois wrote. Even if people were ignorant of essential matters, they had not only to know, but they had to act. Perhaps before inviting Owens into black spaces, these hosts should read the words of the matriarch of the black press, Ida B. Wells, a titan who spent her life fighting the negative narratives about African Americans. Long before she became a founder of the NAACP, which Owens claims doesn't exist to eliminate racism, Wells exposed America's white mob problem. As a columnist and part owner of the Memphis Free Speech and Headlight, she called out judges, Klansmen, and even white women's suffragists. But Wells reserved her ear for conservatives who parroted the bigoted narratives used to support white supremacy. They held with the claim the man who has made popular the unspoken thought of that part of the North which believes in the inherent inferiority of the Negro. Wells wrote of Booker T. Washington, the most prominent black conservative of her time. He knows better than any man before the public today that the prevailing idea of the typical Negro is false. To be fair, Button can't read most of Wells' writing after she wrote a 21 May 1892 article exposing the old threadbare lie about black men's rapacious criminality. A local newspaper called for the Free Speech and Headlight owners to be tied to a stake in the center of town, branded in the forehead with a hot iron, and castrated with a pair of tailor shears. Wells had already left town, but the brave citizens of Memphis still tried to erase her voice from history. The Free Speech and Headlight was burned by a white mob. No surviving copies exist. Wow. That was very interesting. I actually thought this article was going to go more into detail about Candace Owens' conversation with the Breakfast Club, but this went in a different direction. However, it was very informative, and it's letting us know how white supremacy pretty much eradicated everything that we built, from newspapers to books and articles, from schools to the entire Black Wall Street. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And how some people did try to expose and fight back, but in some instances were afraid. So it's just still to this day, in a sense, some of these things still go on, but it's like at this point we don't even really own much. Just like they said, we may rent the studio, we might buy the mic, but who owns the actual corporation? You get what I'm saying? Just like with this particular platform, it's like, yes, this is my channel. I'm the one who's providing the content, putting in blood, sweat, and tears, but this corporation is not owned by me. This is owned by Google. And I don't think, people that look like us actually are, the owners. So it just makes me think, and it still shows that it's so much that we need to do to get back to where we were, or where we were trying to get. Because nowadays it's like we're not even trying to do what we once did, and that's to have a Black Wall Street again, or a colored Wall Street, or a brown Wall Street, or whatever. It's like we're not even trying to do that, whereas other cultures do. Like, it's always a Chinatown, it's always a slew of Indian owned businesses and hotels and truck stops and gas, the list just goes on and on. And we're sitting back not obtaining ownership over anything, and that has to change. But anyway, let me know what y'all think in the comments below, and what did you get from this particular article. And did y'all listen to the Candace Owens interview on The Breakfast Club? I'm gonna have to go back and find that, but yeah. All right, guys, the next article is coming from CBSSports.com, and it says Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, fight card, date, rumors, start time, odds, location, and complete guide. So it says Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is really happening. Netflix steps into the fight game for the first time to host the bizarre boxing crossover. Paul, 27, and Tyson, 57, engage in an exhibition boxing match at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas on July the 20th. The bout will be streamed globally by Netflix, but not come with a PPV price tag. Tyson's legend and vast experience have him as a modest underdog. While Paul lacks in longevity, he should make up for with youth, commitment, and a qualified team behind him. Paul, 9-1, 6 KOs, is all in on boxing. The YouTuber started boxing other social media stars before graduating to UFC fighters and champions, testing the sweet science. Paul recently took a detour from beating older, smaller MMA fighters like Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz and went the more traditional development route. Paul notched consecutive knockout wins over unknown boxers in the lead up to the Tyson announcement. Tyson, 50, 6'2", NC, 44 KOs, has not boxed publicly since his 2020 exhibition against fellow legend Roy James Jr. ended in a draw. It's often said power is the last thing to go, and Iron Mike would need it against an opponent 30 years his junior. The former undisputed world heavyweight boxing champion is in an all-time great with wins over Larry Holmes and Michael Spinks. Below is the complete fight card for Paul versus Tyson, along with the latest odds. Check back all week long for the latest news, features, and other content around this massive event. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight card odds. Jake Paul 360 versus Mike Tyson plus 300. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson's info. Date July 20th. Location AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. Start time to be announced. And how to watch on Netflix. So y'all, now I remember that Jake Paul from one of those Nickelodeon shows. It was either Nickelodeon or Disney, and then all of a sudden he ended up on YouTube, and then he ended up boxing. So And I used to be a Tyson fan. I mean, I'm still a fan, but he don't be boxing no more. And of course, I'm Team Tyson all day long. But I don't know. He might not have it in him no more, but I know he don't want to go outside against a Nickelodeon kid. So let me know y'all thoughts on it. Did y'all even know that Tyson was going to be fighting Jake Paul? And I wish we could go since it's out here in Arlington. We should have signed up to go see that. But anyway, y'all, let me know. D-Man said Tyson is going to dismantle Jake Paul. So we'll see on, what was the date again? July the 20th. Let me make sure. Yeah, July the 20th. So yeah, guys, if not, we'll just chill and watch it on Netflix and talk about it after the fact. So yeah, let me know y'all thoughts. The next topic is coming from Newsweek.com, and it reads, toxic lead found in accessories at major retailers. So it says Ross stores in Burlington are among a selection of retailers who are listed as having sold items containing elevated levels of lead. On Tuesday, nonprofit watchdog, the Center for Environmental Health, published a report spanning 13 years that detailed and reported a systemic issue with toxic products sold by the discount retailers. From 2009, CEH stated that it repeatedly found high levels of toxic lead in leather and false leather fashion accessories sold by the retailers. The items included handbags, wallets, shoes, and belts. It is reported that in 2022 alone, more than 25% of the fashion accessories purchased from Ross and Burlington contained elevated lead levels above 0.03% and up to 1.7% in tests by CEH. Off-price retailers like Ross and Burlington are significant players in the fast fashion market, says CEH CEO Kizzy Charles Guzman. The continued practice of selling fashion accessories containing toxic chemicals to lower-income shoppers is unconscionable. Affordability should not come at the cost of our health. Exposure to lead can cause, among other conditions, high blood pressure, headaches, stomach cramps, and fatigue. Prolonged exposure to lead is associated with kidney and gastrointestinal dysfunctions, as well as neurological effects, including delayed reaction times, irritability, and potentially seizures. Medical experts say lead poisoning in children can cause permanent developmental issues. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, exposure in children can damage the brain and nervous system, cause learning, hearing, and speech problems, and lower their IQ. In this report, CEH stated that it has notified Ross, Burlington, Marshalls, Nordstrom Rack, and TJ Maxx nearly 500 times that specific items that were selling contain elevated levels of lead. Per CEH, Ross, which operates as Ross Dress for Less, and Burlington, formerly known as the Burlington Coat Factory, received more than 300 of these notices. Newsweek has contacted representatives of Ross and Burlington via email and website requests from forum for comments. In a statement shared by CEH, pulmonologist Dr. Van Gupta, who serves a medical analyst for NBC News and MSNBC, said no amount of lead is safe. Lead is a carcinogen and reproductive toxicant that can cause permanent and irreversible health effects and is especially harmful to children. Lead found in fashion accessories can come off onto our hands and then travel into our bodies when we touch our mouths. The report was co-authored Kathleen Mohar and Martin Buenelos. In a shared statement, they said that Ross and Burlington are examples of a toxic fashion issue at off-price retailers. All off-price retailers must stop exposing workers and consumers to lead in their products. There is no benefit to lead being in handbags, wallets, shoes, or belts. Galistio Group founder and CEO Rob Rosenheck, who serves as chair of CEH's board, has challenged Ross and Burlington to reassess their supply chains. Ross and Burlington are multi-billion-dollar companies in the top 15 fashion retailers in the United States, Rosenheck said. Today we challenge Ross and Burlington to examine their supply chains to ensure that lead-containing products are not reaching their store shelves at such an alarming and continuous rate. Ross Stores is present in 42 states across the U.S., according to Statista. In 2022, there were a total of 1,693 Ross Dress for Less stores and over 300 dd's discounts, another retail store under Ross Stores banner. There are 927 Burlington stores across the U.S. as of 2023 per Statista. So yeah, guys, there is a lot of lead in their leather or pleather products. I don't really shop at those stores. Mainly because, I have shopped at Burlington, but I will, if I need something from Burlington, I'll just order it off of the website. But I don't think I've ordered too many items from Burlington. I did shop at Ross back in the day, but I do not like shopping in stores where you have to literally dig to find what you're looking for, where it's just a hassle, it's unorganized, it's sloppy, it's junky. I don't like shopping like that. So I tend to not go to those type of stores. However, sometimes there are defects in the items as well. So that's the other reason, like, I don't want to buy something and then you can only wear it once, and when you wash it, it's all raggedy. So I don't like that either, unless I just need something quick and easy to wear, like to do something that I know it doesn't matter if, the clothes get messed up or whatever like that, and eventually I'll turn them into pajamas or loungewear. But yeah, I don't really like shopping in those places. So, but people who do, this is a warning that, their leather and pleather products are lead infested. And according to the doctor in this article, that no level of lead is good. So, and it can cause all of these different issues. And we do tend to touch our wallets and purses, and that lead can get on your hand and into your mouth, and it just goes on and on. So just keep that in mind when shopping at these stores. Basically, just don't buy pleather or leather from these places. Is all I can come up with. Everything else seems to be fine, unless the lead is moving from the leather merchandise on to other items throughout the store, because of the merchandisers hanging these products up on displays and all of that, and then they go touch different products. Maybe it can be transferred that way, I don't know, but just be careful. And I just wanted to put y'all on. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, I also heard something about the Fashion Nova clothes as well, but I'm gonna have to do some research to find out. So that'll probably be on our next podcast, to see if something was going on with Fashion Nova clothes and stuff. But anyway, let me know y'all thoughts. This next topic is coming from democracynow.org, and it's titled "Horrendous. Black men tortured by white Mississippi police goon squad react to guilty pleas." So I'm just going to go ahead and play the video.
Mimi Goodman. A warning to our audience, this next segment contains descriptions and images of police violence. We turn now to Mississippi, where 6 white former police officers who called themselves the Goon Squad have pleaded guilty to raiding a home and torturing 2 black men earlier this year, after first trying to cover up their actions. Some of the officers face life in prison. On January 24th, court records show the deputies raided a home in Braxton, Mississippi, after a white neighbor of one of the officers called them to complain there were black men staying there. The officer texted the others, quote, "Are y'all available for a mission?" That night, without a warrant, the officers burst into the home, handcuffed, beat, tasered the 2 men, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. Also sexually abused them with a sex toy with shouting racial slurs. One of the officers put a gun in Jenkins' mouth for a mock execution and pulled the trigger. The bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, exited through his neck. This is U.S. Attorney Darren LaMarca last week announcing federal charges against the former officers for the attack.
But not only did they brazenly commit these acts, but after inflicting serious bodily injury by firing a shot through one of the victim's mouths, they left him lying in a pool of blood. Gathered on the porch of the house to discuss how to cover it up. What indifference. What disregard for life.
After the attack, Michael Corey Jenkins was actually charged with a felony based on methamphetamine the officers said they found in the raid. But records show that was a lie, and the charge was dropped. In fact, the deputies planted drugs to devise an excuse for the raid and also stole surveillance video from the house. Their body cameras were off. Court documents said the officers used the name Goon Squad, quote, because of their willingness to use excessive force and not to report it. The Associated Press found the deputies were linked to at least 4 violent attacks on black men since 2019. 2 of the men died. For more, we're joined by Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, as well as Malik Shabazz, a civil rights attorney with Black Lawyers for Justice who's representing them. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Malik, let's begin with you. Can you talk about how this case was exposed, how we saw these officers charged, and what you understand about their background, this not being the first vicious attack?
Okay, thank you for having us on. I want to say before we get started that Michael and Eddie will only be speaking, that they cannot speak about the specific details of what happened in that house that night, but they can talk about their reactions to the guilty verdicts and to their pain and suffering. And Michael is suffering because half of his face is numb. But because we have sentencing coming up, so we're under certain sensitive legal guidelines. But we're happy to be on with such a progressive audience. This case was brought to light through the determination of Black Lawyers for Justice, of myself as the attorney for Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, and Mississippi Counsel Trent Walker. From early January, we have advocated strongly and vigorously in every way, and we have worked with community activists in Mississippi and throughout the country in order to bring the truth that is coming to light today, that these defendants, Hunter Elwood, Christian Dedman, Brett McAlpin, Middleton, Osdike, and Joshua Hartfield, that they're called the Rankin County Goon Squad. They're known in the community as the Rankin County Death Squad. This has been occurring for a long time under the leadership of Sheriff Brian Bailey, who should be the subject of criminal investigation also. And they have been getting away with this so long that they felt emboldened to act in such a radical and callous way on that night of January 24th, 2023. but it's through persistence. It's through intense legal advocacy, with us advocating to the U.S. Justice Department, collecting evidence and applying legal pressure and all kinds of pressure to bring about what is now historic. Last Thursday, these 6 defendants pled guilty to 14 federal criminal charges. They'll plead guilty to more state charges Monday. This is the first time, democracy now, this is the first time that a white Mississippi police officer has ever been held criminally responsible for harming a black person. And we know that plenty of police brutality has occurred not only in Rankin County under Brian Bailey, but throughout the state of Mississippi. This is a history-making moment. I'm just so sorry it had to come on the backs of the pain and the suffering, the torture and the shooting and the abuse and waterboarding of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, our clients.
I can't bear to go to Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker meeting you in this way for what you went through that horrific January night. But I'm wondering if each of you could respond to the guilty plea of these officers and what it means to you that some of them may be facing life in prison. Michael Jenkins, let's begin with you.
I feel great that we're finally getting justice. After months, at first they didn't even believe us. For a while I didn't think they were gonna even get a slap on the wrist or anything, but I feel great about it.
And I know it's difficult for you to talk with the gun in your mouth. The police shot you through your mouth, lacerating your tongue. It went through to your neck, shredding that area of your neck. I am only glad that you can be with us today. Did you think you were going to survive that night, Michael?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm still going through pain right now. My whole face numb, my mouth hurting right now. Let me speak.
And Eddie Parker, if you can talk about your response to this plea deal.
It's a long time coming. It's something I say there's also history too, coming from a long way of going through this situation with the same police officers, and pretty much you steer clear, to stay out the way so you wouldn't end up in this situation. But ending up in this situation wasn't part of me, staying clear. So I'm astounded. I'm real happy that it's finally come to a point where they're getting a feeling of what they dish out to people, day in, day out.
And I really misspoke because it's not a deal. They have pled guilty. The idea that they call themselves, Eddie Parker, that they call themselves the Goon Squad. Your thoughts?
That's the Goon Squad. That seems to be a crime organization. I guess they were paid to go out and to stop, but they became that themselves. I believe policing and the public, go hand in hand. I mean, they're people just like us. They want to be held accountable for everything they do. They want to get this certain I guess you say the end of the stick treatment as being the golden ones, but they're not. They're people just like us. I mean, they go out and they do the opposite of what they're getting paid to do. I think it's very horrendous how they can call themselves a Goon Squad and still put on a badge and say they're protecting people.
Malik Shabazz, your lawsuit also mentions other times Rankin County Sheriff deputies used excessive force. I want to ask you about Damian Cameron, who died in 2021 after being taken into custody by the same Rankin County Sheriff's deputies who later attacked Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. This is a clip from a WAPT news report featuring Jenkins' mother, Monica Lee.
A news release from the Rankin County Sheriff's Office says deputies got a call about a burglary and vandalism. When they arrived, Damien was identified as the suspect. The release says as a deputy approached him, he began to fight and resist arrest. They were able to eventually get him into custody and into a patrol car.
And I'm thinking they're taking my son to jail. So I go outside and tell my son goodbye and I love him and I'll be up there tomorrow. At that point, when I got to the side of the truck, my son was laid on the ground, unresponsive.
Monica Lee has said she believes if the sheriff had taken action against the deputies involved in her son's death, maybe they would not have gone on to attack Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. The lawsuit also holds Sheriff Bailey responsible for failing to properly train the deputies involved in these incidents. This is Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey speaking last week about the charges his former deputies pled guilty to.
Based on the facts and their guilty pleas, all of the former deputies lied to me that night of this incident in January. We have cooperated fully with all outside investigating agencies to uncover the truth and bring justice to the victims. We've also sought assistance from outside agencies and consultants to help us in repairing our trust with the community.
So that was Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey speaking last week. Malik Shabazz, the civil rights attorney who has brought the lawsuit on behalf of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, if you can respond to the sheriff and to this previous case.
Yes, first of all, I want to give honors to Miss Monica Lee, who was the mother of Damien Cameron, attorney Trent Walker, and myself. We represent Miss Monica Lee for the death of Damien Cameron, which occurred at the hands of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department and its officers, including Hunter Elwood, the shooter who didn't just shoot Michael Jenkins in his mouth. He placed the gun inside Michael Jenkins' mouth and held it for an extended period of time, almost up to a minute, before he intentionally shot Michael Jenkins in his mouth, attempting to kill him. Yes, Miss Lee is correct. If they would not have participated in a cover-up around Damien Cameron's death, Damien Cameron's death is analogous and very similar to George Floyd's death. It was Hunter Elwood and Luke Stickman who put the knees on Damien Cameron's back and on his neck, causing trauma to his neck and causing hemorrhages in both of Damien Cameron's eyes, meaning that the compression on his neck is what led to asphyxiation and his actual cause of death. But the autopsy mysteriously was ruled undetermined. With all of the evidence that I'm saying and all of the gruesome photos of the neck injuries and the hemorrhages of the eyes bulging out of his head, the autopsy finding was mysteriously undetermined. The autopsy itself is missing certain information, and therefore myself and Black Lawyers for Justice, we have our own forensic pathologist who are coming forth shortly to show you that this was a homicide and that Rankin County and Brian Bailey refused to provide the state medical examiner with information to reach a proper conclusion because they were all protecting the officers from criminal prosecution. Therefore, the autopsy is suspicious. The autopsy and the efforts to have a genuine autopsy, it was covered up by Rankin County. And Brian Bailey has been a part of this. Ms. Lee is correct. If they hadn't been trying to cover up, if Bailey hadn't been trying to justify his officers, no, he didn't just not train them, he has participated in acts of excessive force with his department, according to the courts. When Hunter Elwood shot Pierre Woods in Rankin County on the ground, and he gunned him and he shot him 9 times with his rifle, and the man was no threat to him. Sheriff Bailey was on the scene, and a federal judge ruled that Bailey could not have qualified immunity because he ratified and watched it all go on in person. And so the truth is coming out about the death of Damian Cameron and how they had the knees on his neck like his mother has testified by affidavit to, and they had the knees on his neck that crushed the life out of Damian Cameron, and they did nothing about it. They've lied to us, but we're going to bring that case. That case is coming back to life. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan. They infiltrated the sheriff's department. Brian Bailey has known about this. Many of these criminals were on duty up until June 1st, only through the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and U.S. Department of Justice leader Kristen Clark and her Southern District in Mississippi, who've done a great job. Only through their efforts has Brian Bailey, sheriff, trying to come to some remorse. He has not even apologized to the victims. We demand that Brian Bailey step down now. He's a part of a pattern of practice and a culture and a custom of terrorism by his department. We have blacks, whites, rich, poor. They have been beaten by his officers. He's known this all along, and the struggle continues. In this case, for compensation for these 2 suffering victims, Jenkins and Parker, but for all of the victims of Rankin County terrorism. It's the #1 county for terrorism and white supremacist infiltration. Case in point, before I close, Christian Dedman. It's coming out, he has family members that have pled guilty in Mississippi to hate crimes. I mean, a lot more is going to come out about this. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan, and it's in the police departments.
And Malik Shabazz, can you place Rankin County for us in 2 ways, in history and also just geographically? It's right near Jackson, the capital.
Yes, Attorney Trent Walker says, who grew up in Rankin County, my partner, Attorney Trent Walker, states that this was customary in Rankin County. They beat first and they don't ask questions later. They beat you, they kill you, and you are ordered not to say anything about it. Hunter Elwood, the shooter, actually pled guilty in federal court to another crime he had committed, which contained a similar fact to what he did in the home of Jenkins and Parker. When these deputies busted in to begin this torture session, Hunter Elwood shot his gun off as an intimidation against Jenkins and Parker. Before he shot Michael later, he shot his gun off. Well, he pled guilty in federal court to doing the same thing to another person in Rankin County. He just shooting his gun off like that. So what we're saying, ma'am, is that all of these truths are going to come to light. Rankin County has done this for a long time. It's near Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, and I believe the county is sort of a reaction to Jackson. Jackson is in Hinds County. It's majority black, and there's hostility towards Jackson. And Rankin is like a white enclave that is next to Jackson, and it's set up like almost like a political, social antithesis or against Jackson. And so they're clear in Rankin, just 20 minutes away from Jackson, Mississippi, just like these deputies said. They didn't want any black men living in the area. The mere fact that there were black men in this area, that they were going to carry out this mission and let them know that they were not welcome and they were going to violate all laws and break in. It's because they have determined, I believe these deputies and others in that county have determined that Rankin County is for whites and Hinds County is for blacks. And they're going to enforce it under the color of law, through violence and torture. Not to mention, especially on this program, we cannot forget waterboarding. Waterboarding was where the United States military was condemned for using these techniques at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, in the Iraq War. The military denounced this. But in 2023, incredibly, in Rankin County, these deputies, Elwood, McAlpin, Deadman, Updike, Middleton, Hartsfield, they actually waterboarded the two men you see now. They had them on their backs. They had them handcuffs. They had them intimidated, and they were pouring milk, liquids, and grease all over their faces in this insane interrogation and intimidation act. Then after they did all this, can you imagine law enforcement with dildos and sexual devices in their possession, attempting and putting it in the mouths? I hate to say this, that happened to the brothers, but we gotta know their pain and suffering. To take a dildo and to shove it in the mouths of handcuffed and bound men, and waterboard them like that on the ground, and then hurl eggs at them, and then make them strip naked in the shower to try to clean this mess up, strip these men naked in front of these criminals. You know, it just never fails to ignite my passion, and therefore tactically and strategically, we are after Rankin County and we won't let up.
I want to end with the voices of Michael, Corey Jenkins, and Eddie Terrell Parker. How you have lived through the aftermath of this, the trauma that you have experienced, and what you want to come out of this. I mean, it looks like you are exposing an entire sheriff's department in Mississippi. Let's begin with Eddie Parker.
We want justice. We want justice for everyone that has gone through this with Rankin County or gone through this because of Rankin County. We want justice for the ones that were afraid to speak up. You know, justice for the ones that can't speak up. We want something new and better, and clean to come out of this.
And Michael Jenkins.
Basically the same thing, to make sure nobody never go through what we went through again. Animals don't get treated like this. I ain't never seen no animal get treated like this. Just to make sure.
I just want to thank you, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, for your bravery in coming forward and telling your stories. And also, I want to thank Malik Shabazz, the civil rights attorney with Black Lawyers for Justice. Coming up, we're going to Detroit to talk to a woman.
So yeah, guys, I want to know more about this plea deal, because they said they took a plea deal first and foremost. But as I was saying, it's like when I hear people say that racism doesn't exist anymore, it's 2024 and all of this, but then this is blatantly in your face. You can't say that it doesn't exist anymore. These men did absolutely nothing but exist. And we're trying to live on a certain side of town that these white supremacists did not want them on. So, like I've stated before, we are originally from Mississippi. We've seen these type of things go on our entire lives almost. So that's part of the reason why I opted to leave, because small situations you get harassed. You get what I'm saying? Not even real crimes, they harassing you. Like one time I remember we were just trying to get our car to the shop, and it was a whole spectacle. A ticket needs to be paid. It's a whole spectacle. You get what I'm saying? So, and not only that, as far as getting work, trying to buy homes and all these different things, they look at your race and they don't want to help, and they don't want to allow you to, get these different things. And if they do, they want to make you jump through all these hoops. You get what I'm saying? It's just depressing. And it's sad. And even though we don't want racism, we can't sit up here and act like it doesn't exist. I don't want to hate people, and I don't want to, have to feel a certain way when I'm around people. But when they're the ones who are doing this to me or my people, I can't just sit here and be like, no, it don't exist. I love them. I can't see it. So especially when I hear people of color saying that racism doesn't exist, like, go to Mississippi and see if you still feel the same way. But it's like it exists everywhere. It's just some places a little bit more subtle, and some places it's just right up in your face. And Mississippi is one of those. Yeah, some are in the closet, but this is a crazy situation for them to be calling themselves the Goon Squad. It's like, really, it's like undercover clan work. You know what I'm saying? Some type of brotherhood, some type of secret society. And for them to say that these men weren't trained. Yeah, they were trained. They were trained to attack black bodies, destroy black bodies. That's what they were trained to do. They were doing exactly what they were trained to do. And I am shocked that they were actually charged with it. My question is, are they going to be serving these full sentences since they got a plea deal? Or will they end up getting out on good behavior? So I'm going to follow this situation really, really closely. Even a couple of years from now, I'm still going to be looking into it, because a lot of these cops will end up getting out on good behavior. Some of them won't even spend a good month, because we as a people, we forget. Our mind, we got this short-term memory situation going on, so we don't even check back to see what's going on with these situations. Some of these people are not even spending hardly any time in jail. Yeah, but I don't even think they're gonna make it to general population, because they are cops. So yeah, it's just something that we have to keep our eye on to make sure that these people are serving a sentence. And D-Man can tell y'all that I even be checking back on that one woman that shot that dude. Pow that dude at his apartment, acting like she didn't know she was in his apartment. Yeah, I check back on that situation too from time to time, because I think they trying to get her up out of there too. Yeah. So yeah, guys, let me know y'all thoughts on this. And yeah, it's just sad in the fact that it's still going on, and we are still like trying to act like we colorblind. And they not colorblind. So anyway, I don't have anything against the people that are not doing anything, but the ones that are, and I just can't turn a blind eye to it. It's ridiculous. It's insanity. And that sheriff, the sheriff needs to be behind bars too. If he sat up there and watched certain things occur, so why isn't he going to jail too? So anyway, let me go because I'm trying to keep this on a positive note. And once again, this is another situation where I don't really like spreading this type of information, because it does perpetuate the people to do the same thing. Like other cops that may be watching from other states, other cities, like, oh, we might can get away with that too. Maybe we need to form a goon squad. For those reasons, I be feeling like I don't want to promote this. You get what I'm saying? But to put people in a position where they are informed as to what is going on. And I can't say you gotta act a certain way or try to be respectful and all of that, because none of that matters when they are out to terrorize a group of people. You can be in your Sunday's best, fully dressed, look like you're a conservative person, and they will still terrorize you. There's nothing that you can do. So I can't say you have to be courteous and polite and do everything they say and be nice and all of this. That doesn't matter. Because when they got a mission that they trying to serve, and these men showed up at this dude's house. So it doesn't matter what you do. So anyway, let me go get off of this topic. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And yeah. The last topic of today is coming from Hype Beast. And it reads, Cardi B says she's had enough on new track and video. And another single that may point to the highly anticipated CB2. It's getting more and more likely that Cardi B will be dropping her sophomore album in 2024, a project being referred to by fans as CB2. Earlier this month, she dropped a freestyle called Like What, which sampled Missy Elliott's 1999 classic She's a B.I.T.C.H. and arrived with a music video directed by Offset. Cardi has now returned with another single, the punchy Enough Miami. On the song, she delivered blows to her ops and muses about not being able to trust anyone in the industry. I see my ops like linking up. I'm like, what in the? If you scared, then just say that. Ho, enough is enough. They was just in my DMs. Ain't no trusting these, she raps. A Patience Harding directed visual accompanied the release, seeing Cardi in the studio, changing up her outfit every few seconds. One look is entirely made out of shiny red tape, while another outfit channels Mob Wife with an oversized furry coat. The rapper also embraces her goth side with a mesh black bodysuit and false face piercings. And it says, watch the video. I've already seen it. Actually, I like both songs. I am a Cardi fan. I think she's doing her thing. Keep going, Cardi. We team Barty Gang over here. Let me know if y'all heard her actual latest hits in the comments below. And let me know what y'all think about them. So, yeah, guys. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this chat session out because this was a kind of heavy one for me. I don't want to get, all in my emotions and all of that like that. So, yeah. Let me think if there's any announcements I need to make before I go. Oh, yes. Today is my solar return. If y'all are feeling generous, you can send me some donations in my Cash App, which is $Airfros And Babyhairs. It would greatly be appreciated. And also just some comments and feedback, just letting me know to have a happy solar return. We do need to celebrate life because so many of us are slipping away with all of these different things going on. So yes, celebrate life if you don't celebrate anything else, because tomorrow is not promised. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me for another chat session. I really appreciate you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. I'll chop it up with you guys on the next one. Peace and love, and as always, be blissful.
DJ Mike C on the track.
Cause that be natural. Lady ain't looking tacky. I keep my game tacky.
Yo,
yeah, I'm so nappy. Cause that be natural.
The infamous.
Ain't looking tacky. Cause I keep my game tacky.
I'm so pretty, I'm so faboo, I'm so natural, it's like it's a taboo. I'm so filthy, got the tattoo, cooking these bitches like I own ragu. On my business with my platoon, getting these minutes like I'm a typhoon. Y'all is jersey on that cartoon, and I'm sitting on top of these buffaloes. I'm so nappy, I'm so nappy. All these dudes that wanna get at me, I'm so cultured and I'm happy. Jealous switches wanna come back me, cause I'm comfortable in my skin. End of the day, you lose, I win. I'm so comfortable in my ends, don't care if I make or lose a few friends. And I look like $1 trillion. Lady D won a lotto, cause in the Lord I trust. And beauty is the motto. Naturally thick in the butt, I'm Billy Blanks on the Tabo. Edges a little rough, just pretend I'm from Morocco. Organ all up in my hair, cause I let my locks grow naturally. My curls popping everywhere, I'm maximizing on this natural thing. Like it or not, I don't care. You clowns ain't about to worry me. for my ancestry.